How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final scene. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be out you.
Won't anybody help us? What are we running for? When there's nowhere we can run to anymore. Can't afford to be innocent. Stand up and face the enemy. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible. And with the power of conviction, there is no sacrifice. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible.
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent $200.
retarded?
Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I
The
like
great
her.
noticer sent $200.
Literally.
So
not
it's,
Ian.
it's not because
Yeah.
I haven't dangled my junk into the combat zone on purpose to get some camera footage, but that's the big part of what's the
Is
problem.
that what you call reporting?
Go
and live
under if
streaming?
you're going to do it.
Yeah,
go
seriously.
undercover. Otherwise, you're wearing a hunk of meat in a lion's den. Nick Shirley, I love you. Take care of yourself, man. Karlyn Borysenko went undercover. Do stuff like that. Like if you want to expose this thing, don't pariah,
But
please.
Ian, here's and I agree with you to an extent.
You know, sometimes people think that I'm going too far when I say that we need to put all communists in a concentration camp. And listen, I want to be very clear. We always have to be specific about this. I don't want them to die. I don't want them to live in misery and starvation. I simply want to take all of the revolutionary communists in America and gather them together and concentrate them in a camp-like area and then build a giant fuck-off wall around that area. And then they get to have their communist utopia in the concentrated camp-like area, and we'll give them supplies and we'll give them food. This is called an investment. I know it would take a lot of money to relocate all of the communists in the country to one location. I'm not suggesting we deport them. They are American citizens technically, but I think like even if it would take a lot of money to relocate all the communists to a common commune-like concentrated camp location, and then it would cost a lot of money to build a giant fuck-off wall around them. And possibly we should also put a giant shark and alligator-filled moat around the wall. Like a really, really long moat. Not like a little moat they can walk over on a bridge. I'm not like, there's no drawbridge or anything. I'm talking like a giant fucking lake. That is also just like in a moat-like shape. That's what I'm talking about. Some people think I'm too extreme with this perspective. They say, Karlyn, it's probably not a good idea to concentrate all the communists in a camp-like area. Some might say that's a little fascist, and I would say, I don't see the problem. I don't see the problem. We have a group of people in the country that is right now doing absolutely every single thing they can think of to facilitate an overthrow of the federal government. This is about overthrowing the government. The anti-ICE activism is about overthrowing the government. The No Kings protest is a progressive group that attracts elements that want to overthrow the government, that recruits the progressives into the more radicalized left, where they want to overthrow the government and are doing things that are required to get ever so close to that goal. The May Day protests were about overthrowing the government. The pro-Palestine protests are about overthrowing the government because they hate Israel for exactly the same reason as they hate America. They believe Israel stole the land from the Palestinians. They believe America stole the land from the indigenous people. Land back means overthrow the federal government. Abolish the police is about overthrowing the government because they believe the police are the protectors of the capitalist government. Abolishing ICE is about overthrowing the government because ICE are the protectors of the capitalist border. They don't believe borders should exist. They don't believe the country should exist. So, since we have a group of people that are very clear in their intentions, and literally every single thing they do in society is about overthrowing the government, and you retards have got to stop with the fucking Muslim bullshit. Believe me, Shane, I'm going to get to you in a second. Because, trust me, Shane, leftists are not the only people I want to lock in a concentration camp. You just hold that thought. Because as much as people might think I'm too extreme with the idea of locking all communists in a concentration camp and allowing them to live out their commune-like existence in whatever way they want as an investment in the American people to get this element out of our society and extricate ourselves from it, and then if people decide they want to go live in the fucking concentration camp on the publicly funded fucking commune with all the fucking communists, they can go there. And the rest of us will be left alone. Some people think I'm a bit too extreme in this idea. 1 in the chat if you think I'm being too extreme. 2 in the chat if you think I'm right on board. Or I'm right on target, rather. 1 in the chat if you think I'm being too extreme. 2 in the chat if you think I'm right on target with this idea of a leftist concentration camp. I'm just curious what you guys think about all this. Yeah, no one's going to die. No one's going to starve. Unlike in real communism, no one's going to starve in the communist compound concentrated camp-like area. No one's going to starve. When they figure out they don't know how to fucking farm, we will, by taxpayer funding, provide them with food so they don't starve of their own volition in the way of life that they have created for themselves. We'll let them live out communism there. But what you really need to understand is communists are not the only people that I want to put in a concentrated camp-like area. Communists are not the only people I have a problem with. Communists are not the only type of people that are destroying our society. Do you know who else needs to go into a concentrated camp-like area? Yes. 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 We need to start rounding up all of the low IQ conservative and MAGA retards. And this is probably going to be a lot easier than the communists because the communists are smart. The communists can outmaneuver us. They already have an organized network. It's probably going to be much easier to round up all of the low IQ conservative retards. If you're a high IQ conservative, I'm not talking about you. Everyone will be administered a test, okay? Don't worry. If you are a Trump voting MAGA Zionist conservative, you will have a chance to prove your worth to us before we send you to the low IQ camp. And I'm sorry, like, if you can't prove your worth to us, if you can't prove you are a contributing member of society, if you can't prove that you are on board with doing what's required to stop the leftist threat, if you can't prove that you know how to read books, if you can't prove that you know basic logic and reasoning and are able to discern reality from fictionalized conservative bullshit narrative. If you can't prove any of those things, I'm very sorry, you have to go to the concentration camp. We will administer an IQ test to all MAGA conservatives and retards, and the high IQ will get to be able to stay and be full-fledged Americans, and the low IQ retards, for their own good, as well as for the good of all of us, need to be concentrated in their own camp to fend for themselves because they think they know fucking everything about everything. They think they know how to run everything. They think they're hinged into reality. Okay, assholes. Okay, let's see what happens when we concentrate all of you in a camp and we see how your society functions. Why don't we give this a try? Why don't we try removing your stupid fucking asses from society and then see if our overall higher IQ society will function a little bit better. Maybe we'll all be more productive. Maybe we'll all make more money. Maybe we will cut with the fucking bullshit. Maybe we will finally and at long last be able to extricate some corruption from this system that we are all forced to fund with our taxpayer dollars. If we just got rid of the communists, we put them in a giant concentrated camp-like area for them to live out their communist dreams. And then we also, on the other side of the fucking country, or in Alaska, can we just send all the conservative MAGA-tards to Alaska? Can we just do that? We concentrate all the retarded MAGA conservatives in a snowy, cold wilderness where they can figure out how to live in Alaska, man. They will build a fucking fence. We'll cut off the ports. We will control what goes in and out of there. Just like we'll obviously take away their guns because they can't be trusted with them. We will have guns. They will not have guns. Same for the communists. We will have guns. They will not have guns. We will use the guns to protect them from themselves when they start getting really, really, really fucking stupid. But or Antarctica, you know, Mitchell brings up a good point in the chat. Antarctica is also, of course, another option here. It is. It is. Chicalago, W's for the channel membership. Really do appreciate that. Really do appreciate that. Guys, I have had it with conservative retardation. And you're like, Karlyn, you literally say that every day. It must be a day that ends in Y. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know how much more I can do this. I really don't know how much more I can do this. I don't know. It's not the far left that I have trouble dealing with. I've gotten used to the far left. I've gotten used to constantly living in a dystopian nightmare. I get that. I just don't know how much longer I can take the levels of conservative and MAGA retardation without fucking losing it. It's getting worse. It is getting Reagan is right. It's getting worse. It's everywhere. We're surrounded by it. You know, people sometimes they don't understand why I gatekeep my community so heavily. They don't understand why I have rules on my channel. They don't understand why I have like cultural norms on my channel where like you're only allowed to be involved on the channel if you have a higher IQ or you have something to offer. Or, you know what? Sometimes we get lower IQ people, but they want to learn and they show up and they really fucking try and they learn over time. They do. They're just fine. Like, listen, if you're a lower IQ person and you're like, Karlyn, I hate all this fucking shit. I think you're right. And I just want to learn about it. You are welcome. Just like you guys don't remember what it used to be like. You guys don't remember what it used to be like in the chat and on the channel in the before times. You don't remember. You don't remember what it used to be like. And at some point, you know, I kind of had the realization that if I wanted to be able to interact with the higher IQ people in this audience, and I don't care if those higher IQ people like agree with me on everything or not. There are many people in the chat that disagree with me on things, but they disagree with me intelligently. They're able to intellectually challenge me. They're able to introduce me to ideas that I didn't know before. Like, we have very intelligent people in this chat and in this community that are super, super fucking into this shit just as much as I am. And they know just as much about it as I do. And in some cases, they know different shit than I do. Why wouldn't I want those people around? In some cases, they've been able to change my mind to say, Karlyn, did you consider X, Y, B, and Z for this reason? And they were able to present an intelligent argument. That's the kind of chat that I want. That's the kind of community that I want. I want the community of high IQ, actual intellectual conversation. In order to create that, we have to expel all low IQ influences that might be disruptive to this endeavor. Because the thing of it is, guys, with high IQ people, they aren't going to complain about how miserable they are being around all the conservative retards. High IQ people are driven insane by the amount of retardation that's happening right now on Twitter. W Deets in the chat. Thank you so much for the gifted channel membership. It is a maddening experience because you constantly have to be around people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. You know that because you've seen it directly. I love it when conservatives try to tell me about Antifa and I'm like, you dumb bitch, I've gone undercover with Antifa more than like literally anyone else that I know of. Well, Karlyn, let me teach you about Antifa because I've never even been around Antifa and I don't really know anything about their propaganda or their group or their organizing strategy. But I watched a Libs TikTok video one time and I think that I know enough about Antifa to be able to teach you a thing or two. It's like, no. Mm-mm. No. No. We are not the same. We are not on the same level. We do not offer the same value. I'm very sorry you think that. I'm very sorry you're confused. No. And I have to build a wall around my fucking community to protect the high IQ people because this type of retardation doesn't just impact me. It impacts everyone. High IQ people don't want to be around conservative retardation and bullshit and narrative. We can see right through it. It is so fucking obvious. But the other thing is, high IQ people don't often complain when they just don't want to do something anymore. They just fucking leave. So if I have high IQ people in the chat mingling with low IQ people in the chat who are constantly being disruptive, constantly causing problems, constantly insulting people, constantly shilling the same old conservative bullshit talking points that we have debunked countless times using primary source evidence, they're so fucking unhinged from reality. It's not even funny. At some point, the higher IQ people are just going to go, and then I'm going to be left with the conservative retards. And I can't do it, guys. I can't. I'm a human being too. I've been doing this a long ass time. I am being driven insane by these fucking people. I just can't. I fucking can't anymore. Tolkien fan, thank you for the super chat. At this point, I'm at the point that if I'm abducted by aliens, I would consider it a rescue operation and would go willfully while welcoming the new alien family. Yeah. Did anyone see the movie, Hail Mary with Ryan Gosling, I guess, that just came out? Yo, old sub! Thank you for the $50 super chat, old sub. Really appreciate it. I don't want to live in a concentration camp. I just retired. Old sub, you're already on the good list. Don't worry about it, old sub. You're gonna stay. You're gonna stay. And if they do put you in the camp, old sub, we'll rescue you. Okay, we will stage a rescue operation. We'll stage a rescue operation. Don't worry about it, old sub. We love you. W's in the chat from Malcolm. Really appreciate that, bro. Did anyone see the movie Hail Mary with Ryan Gosling about space that came out? So Victor really wanted to go see this movie. And you got to understand, Victor almost never wants to go to movies. And he says to me the other day, he's like, "Karlyn, can we go see a movie?" And I was like, "Okay, Victor, do you want to see The Devil Wears Prada 2?" And he's like, "No, I don't want to see The Devil Wears Prada 2." He's like, "I want to see this Ryan Gosling space movie." And so we went to the Ryan Gosling space movie. And it is a phenomenal fucking movie. It really is. It is a phenomenally good movie. And it's actually really apropos to what someone just said in the chat about like if the aliens came, they would consider it a rescue mission. Because I don't want to give away a spoiler or anything like it's not, whatever. There is a question of, for the main character, because he's in space, he's doing this mission in space, he meets another alien in space, they work together to do the mission. No, I'm going to try not to give anything away. There is a question of, several times in the movie actually, does he go home to Earth or does he go live with the alien because they become buddies? And that's actually it's a really interesting question at this point. It's like, if the aliens were to come, man, would I prefer to go with them and just go see what's what and see what's going on? I'd under the I'm probably gonna get eaten or something. It's probably like the old Twilight Zone episode of To Serve Man is really a cooking book. I don't mind giving away a spoiler for that one. It's 60 years old. Okay, you should have seen it by now anyway. But yeah, I don't know what I would do. I really don't know what I would do. Because I think the world as we're going right now is pretty fucked, if I'm being honest about it. I think the United States is fucked. I think it's so bad. We have a leftist political establishment that is working every single day to try to overthrow the government. And we have a right political establishment that's constantly jerking each other off and just making shit up perpetually without actually paying any attention at all to what the leftists are doing. And yet they think they know everything. And yet they think they fucking know everything. And it's like... Anyway. Anyway. Hey, guys, guess what? Yo, Cynthia with the 50. Thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate your generous super chat. I've been telling you I wanted to be abducted by aliens from the very beginning. I don't want to go to communist camp either. No, Cynthia, you're not going to the camp. You're going to be fine. Cynthia's going to come live with us on the cult commune, and it's going to be on, or a compound. We shouldn't call it a commune. Probably should call it a compound. That's probably better. Hey, guess what? So this was the first thing that I saw when I woke up this morning. When I turned on my phone, when I woke up, preparing to go to the post office to have a showdown with my mail lady, who decided to stop delivering my mail without telling me because she's a passive-aggressive bitch. I was getting ready to go do battle at the post office with the mail lady, which is a battle I won, by the way, just in case any of you were wondering. And I was thinking about that in my head, and then I turn on my phone, and I turn on Instagram, and this is the very first post I see. And I was like, that must be a sign from God. That must be a sign from God that it must be Fat Liberation Day on the channel. You know, we don't cover fat liberation all that much because there's just not a ton of fat liberation content to cover. But when the universe sends you a sign that it's Fat Liberation Day, you have to follow that journey, and there's just nothing else to do. 1 in the chat if you have covered fat liberation stuff with me before. 2 in the chat if you have never done fat liberation before. And I'm not talking about watching a video of Steven Crowder owning fat people or like any of that stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually listening to real queer fat liberation activists, because this is a real thing. This is a real thing. It looks like many of you have done it before. If a couple haven't, man. So, fat liberation is a subset of queer Marxism. Queer Marxism is the type of activism that is not concerned with capitalism as an economic model. Queer Marxism is concerned with capitalism as a cultural model, as the norms that uphold our culture. That's what they mean when they say normativity. There are many different types of queer Marxism. Disability or crip studies is going to be under queer Marxism. You might have, like, all of the abolish gender stuff is going to be under queer Marxism. All of the abolish the family stuff is going to be under queer Marxism. And yes, indeed, there is fat liberation under queer Marxism. This is an organization called Radical Public Health. Radical Public Health is an alliance of like different kind of like organizations at different colleges. I believe it started at the University of Illinois, Chicago, public taxpayer funded college. And they basically are socialist public health professionals. They are far leftists. They do all these crazy public health presentations. And one of the things they talk about more than normal is fat liberation. And apparently, they have just released a new fat liberation working group statement on our name and values. And I kind of flipped through this and I thought it was pretty interesting. And I thought you guys might like to see it. Fat liberation is essential to collective justice. In alignment with the mission of Radical Public Health, RPH, to challenge racial capitalism, colonialism, ableism, and all forms of state violence, we recognize the necessity of fat liberation. We acknowledge the deep connections between the medicalization of fatness and other forms of oppression. Is documented by Deshaun Harrison and Dr. Sabrina Strings. The medicalization of fatness is rooted in anti-Black racism and its push via science. They're saying science is racist. To classify Black people's, especially Black women's bodies, as out of control, grotesque, or deviant. Fat is a reclaimed political identity. As a reminder, guys, when we are talking about queer Marxism, you do not need to be gay to be queer. You do not need to be trans to be queer. Being queer is not about being gay. It's not about being trans. It's not about who you sleep with. It's not about if you transition your gender, if you're doing it from man to woman. Queer means a far left political ideology. You can be trans and not be queer. You can be gay and not be queer. The only thing you need to do to be queer is declare that you are queer, because queer is not about your identity, your like the identity categories. Queer is about your politics. Queer is a political identity. It is a extremely far left, radicalized political identity. That is what it is. And so when they're saying here, remember, fat liberation is a subset of queer Marxism. Fat is a reclaimed political identity. Following in the footsteps of fat liberation colleagues such as the Fat Underground, we've covered that on the channel, Deshaun Harrison, Caleb Luna, and many others, we intentionally use the term fat in both a reclamatory sense and also a distinct political category similar to race, gender, and disability. We see fatness and body diversity as an essential aspect of human variation. We reject terminologies such as obesity, obese, and overweight, and these categories pathologize fat bodies as diseased and in need of eradication. We assert that medicine has weaponized its authority to control and discipline populations in accordance with dominant power structures, which of course means capitalism. Rejecting the profit-driven obesity paradigm. One of these areas are obesity research and obesity medicine. Weight stigma and bias do not always take the form of overt insults or bullying. More commonly, they manifest in the harmful notions that fatness is a disease that must be cured, funded by the weight loss industry, including weight loss industry organizations like the Obesity Action Coalition. The dominant weight-centric paradigm of obesity poses multiple dangers to both ethical and evidence-based health interventions. The myth of weight equating to health status. Again, remember, this is a group of higher education, public health professionals. This is a group of taxpayer-funded professors, teachers, professionals working in higher education that is telling you you can be healthy at any size. We know the risks of fatness itself are largely overstated and do not account for several factors. These include rampant weight bias of obesity, researchers and medical providers, the stress and trauma caused by the daily realities of anti-fatness, especially when combined with multiple axes of marginalization. That means intersectionality. Poor quality medical care and thus avoidance of medical care that fat patients are significantly more likely to receive, that's a typo, and more weight cycling. In the words of public health scholar, I don't know how to say that Black name, our society doesn't hate fatness because it's unhealthy. Our society thinks fatness is unhealthy because we hate it. Can I just read this quote again for you guys? Can I just read this quote again? Our society doesn't hate fatness because it's unhealthy. Our society thinks fatness is unhealthy because we hate it. Okay. Okay. You don't get this type of entertainment anywhere else on the internet. You're welcome. You're all welcome. Like who else is showing you this on the internet? This is real, guys. This is real. This is not satire. This is real. Support for weight-neutral care. We align ourselves with various evidence-informed paradigms, which include but are not limited to health at every size, size-inclusive medicine, and body trust. We acknowledge that healthy, active, nourished bodies come in all shapes and sizes while rejecting health notions as a moral status. There is no health condition that is unique to fat people, and metabolic health markers can and should be improved without a focus on weight loss. We reject the myth that all fat people require weight loss interventions. Rejecting harmful weight interventions. Whether in the form of prescribing restricted diet and exercise regimes, even if they are referred to as lifestyle changes or weight loss medications, weight loss carries significant risks of metabolic and psychological side effects. They're saying that losing weight is physically and psychologically bad for you. Well, I'm fucked. I am fucked then. I have yo-yo dieted my entire fucking life. This is not the first time I've lost a significant amount of weight. I've done this shit before. This is how I knew I could do it. They're literally saying weight loss carries significant risks of metabolic and psychological side effects. Okay. Thus, our understanding of public health challenges practitioners within our field to imagine health outside of weight loss and engage with evidence-informed paradigms listed above via toolkit and posts. Fat liberation is a politic of abundance. It is very abundant. You have to give them. Do you think they understood what they were saying when they wrote this headline? Fat liberation is a politic of abundance? Like literally abundant? Like, yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Finally, it is not a coincidence that this current moment of heightened fascism, imperialism, and state violence is accompanied by an increased emphasis on weight loss and hatred of fatness, especially what the fuck? Especially while multiple genocides are being carried out via starvation in occupied Palestine, Gaza, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Since its inception, they literally believe that famine is a crime against fat people. Famine is fat phobic. Wow. Since its inception through genocide, chattel slavery, and colonial expropriation, the settler colonist state has depended on restriction, shrinking, and molding the body into an idealized form. We are clear that decolonization globally means sovereignty with respect to both land and body, and explicitly claiming a fat liberation lens. We refuse our bodies as additional sites to be claimed by the insatiable demands of state and capital. Fat liberation means a politic of abundance, imagining and enacting a world beyond restriction, shrinking, and starvation. Radical Public Health is an association of students, alumni, faculty, staff, and community members that seek to address the systemic underlying causes of local, global public health challenges. Blah, 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 blah. So that is the Fat Liberation Working Group that your taxpayer dollars are funding. Let me just put this in the chat if you guys want to go and see for yourself. Just double check, make sure that I'm not making shit up or anything, which conservatives are prone to do, but I'm not going to do that. So when I saw this morning, I said, this is a sign from God that we are supposed to do fat liberation today. And so I did what any normal person would do. And I spent half my day looking for fat liberation presentations. And the first one I found that I do think looks very promising, if I'm being honest, is from the National Association for the Advancement of Fat People, called Intersectionality in Fat Liberation. You can tell it's being given by 3 very fat people just like huddled around a table. And I think just based on that alone, there's probably a high probability that this one would be very entertaining. So we found that one. And then I found a really old presentation actually from Radical Public Health. And we haven't watched this one before. We watched a different fat liberation presentation that Radical Public Health did, but we never saw this presentation, Unlearning Fat Phobia, Moving Towards Fat Liberation in Public Health. We never saw this one before. So I decided, I was like, we were originally going to watch this. We were originally going to watch this. And I had actually even made a thumbnail of this and everything. And I was ready to go. And then I said, Karlyn, why don't you look just a little bit more? Why don't you look just a little bit more into the Fat Liberation Archive and just see if you can find anything else? And that's when I struck gold. That's when I struck gold. I found it. I had to keep looking. Chicalago W, thank you for the channel membership. Appreciate that, bro. We update our total. Guys, if you want to support the work I'm doing exposing and decoding the far left, please consider gifting some channel memberships. That would be rad. I found the motherlode, guys. I found the motherlode. I don't really know what any of this means, but it's got so many keywords in the title that I don't know how this could possibly be an L. I don't know how this can possibly be an L. This is on a website called Weight Stigma Awareness Week. That is weightstigmaawarenessweek.org. And it is called Fat Queer Media as Political Self-Making Toward a Fat Queer Anti-Racist Politic. I can't say motherlode, Cynthia? Okay. I don't really know what this is about, and I don't know what any of this means, but I think that we have stumbled upon a W presentation to watch about fat liberation. Now, I want to warn people, this doesn't happen like every time, but it happens frequently enough that oftentimes when we are watching fat liberation, we also accidentally end up seeing fat porn, okay? Almost every single fat activist that I've ever gone down the rabbit hole on, almost every single one of these people is also an amateur porn star. I swear to God. If you want to see proof of this, just look up the fat liberation zines. Just type it into Google, it'll come right up. And I promise you, if you go and read those zines, the original ones, the ones that kind of like inspired the current movement, they're filled with fucking fat porn. I have seen things in places that I cannot unsee. I have seen very large, copious bodies doing things that I wish I didn't have a visual image of them doing. These are the sacrifices that I make for you when I go study and research the far left. And I just want a little bit of credit for that, because ain't no one else doing this shit for you assholes. Oh yeah, and that, well, there's tons of boobage, and then let's not get started on the queer fat bondage stuff that happens. That's like a whole other thing. The queer fat rope bondage stuff, that's like a whole other loads of fun. Yeah, it's loads of fun. Yeah, it's awesome. So if you have kids in the room, I'm just warning you now. I don't know what's in this presentation, but I'm just telling you that I've seen this happen enough where we accidentally came across fat porn multiple times in like multiple fat presentations before. And I just want to warn everyone that you should not be watching this with kids in the room, or like, do it on your phone or something where they can't see it. I don't say I didn't warn you. I'm warning you, okay? I'm warning you. Oh, is no one wearing a white shirt today? Well, good. I'll have to check that out later. I have been traumatized, Tommy. I have been traumatized by the amount of fat porn that I have accidentally seen over the years. And then once you see it, you have to look at it. It's like, you don't even know. You don't even know the pain that I've gone through for all of you. You don't even know, okay? So that's what we're going to be watching today, guys. We're going to be watching this presentation, and if it turns out to suck, we can go back and watch one of the other ones. But I think that this is going to be a W. Just a reminder, if you are new to my channel and you would like a deep dive to understand the language of the far left, so you're not like I'm particularly directing this at like more right-leaning people. Listen, we don't want conservatives to be retarded, okay? We don't want conservatives to be retarded. We don't want anyone to be retarded, but particularly conservative and right-leaning people. We don't want MAGA people to be retarded. We don't want conservatives to be retarded. We don't want Christians to be retarded. We don't want anyone to be retarded. But you have to overcome the retardation of your own side, and you have to start hinging back into reality. And so to help you do that, I have put together some free resources. And you can avail yourselves of these free resources, and then you can decide if I'm just making all this shit up. Because if you click on this, you will go to the New to My Work section on Substack, which is Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. And I want you to come down here and I want you to watch the re-education class, an anti-communist introduction to the far left. This is a 90-minute free crash course on the language of the left that uses over a dozen recordings directly from far left trainings. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can see for yourself what they're actually saying and what they're actually doing and what they actually believe. Take 90 minutes and watch that. If you want to keep going, you can watch the 4-hour course, which goes into much greater depth on all those issues, again, with tons of recordings. You never have to take my word for it. I play you all the recordings so you can see for yourself what they're actually saying. And then if you want to learn about queer Marxism, which of course is the topic for the day, and get an overview of the history of it, I have that. That's an hour-long lecture I did about the development and origin of queer Marxism in America. I think it's really interesting. It's different than what you've been told. It's actually much more dangerous and much worse than you've been told. And so you can watch that if you want to. Again, all of that is available for free on my Substack. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to give me your email address. You literally just have to go and click on it and watch the video. You don't have to admit to anyone that you did it. And then you will be far less retarded. And then you will start to hinge into reality. And then I promise you, if you do this, you're going to get just as pissed off at conservatives and MAGA people as we are. If you, one in the chat, let me do a quick poll. One in the chat, one in the chat, if you became more pissed off with conservatives, the more of my work you consumed. 2 in the chat, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you think conservatives are just great and you've been consuming my work for a while. 1 in the chat, if consuming my work made you more pissed off with conservatives. 2 in the chat, if that's not true for you. You don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the chat. It's a lot of fucking ones. A lot of fucking ones. Once you hinge into reality, you will come over to our side. You will come over to our side. And the only people who are not on our side are the people who refuse to engage with reality. And that's just the way it goes. I didn't make any of the clips in any of these trainings. All I did was record them. That's it. And so if you aren't willing to hinge into reality, ain't nothing can be done to help you. All right. Let's get into it, guys. As a reminder, I would love to hit 100 new channel members on the channel today. The very best way to support my work is by sending in channel memberships. You can also, of course, send in super chats. You can also become a paying supporter over on my Substack. All of those methods of support are appreciated. No matter what you do, I am 100% funded by you. Meeting the goals that I put up every day really does help me to be able to do this, because I do not have any big political funding. I do not have any organizations that I work for. I work for all of you. And so all I ask is that if you come to my streams and you learn something, or I make you think, or I make you laugh, or I entertain you, and you're able to financially support my work, please do so by gifting channel memberships out to the community, by sending in a super chat, by doing Substack subscriptions. Yes, we are doing Disinration Nightbot. And so that is the very best way to support my work. I personally prefer channel memberships because I love that you're not only supporting my work, you're also gifting something out to the community, because this is a community, guys. We're not community as in a collectivist way or a communist way. We need to help and support each other because everyone else is stupid and unhinged from reality, and we are not. And so this is the time before shit really gets bad that we got all band together and support each other. So if you can help me meet that goal of getting 100 new channel memberships today, if I do a good job of teaching you, if I break this stuff down, if I explain it, if I show you things in a different way than other people have, please feel free to throw into the tip jar to show your appreciation. And if you can't afford to give, we hope that people who can financially afford to do so will step up so that we can continue to have content like this free for everyone. I really do appreciate it, guys. Let's get this party started.
Hi, everybody. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at.
Yo, Sheikah Lago coming in with the gifted channel membership. Thank you, bro. W's in the chat for Sheikah Lago, please.
We're so happy that you're a part of Weight Stigma Awareness Week 2023. We cherish this week. We cherish the people participating, and we thank you for being here with us today. I thank Body Equity Alliance, my dear friend Shavis Turner, and I thank Cynthia and everybody from within for helping make all of this possible, because you guys care so much. I adore you and I thank you. We are so blessed this morning.
This isn't about being fat. This is about overthrowing capitalism. It's not about being fat. It's about overthrowing capitalism and cultural normativity. That's what this is about, guys. W's old sub, thank you so much for the 5 gifted channel memberships. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Cynthia, you're going to have to change your name now. No big deal.
I am honored to have the opportunity to introduce our speaker this morning. Allow me to introduce Caleb Luna. Caleb Luna is an artist, public scholar, and theorist of the body. They are an award-winning educator and scholar, the best-selling author of Revenge Body by Black Lawrence Press 2023, and co-host of the podcast Unsolicited Fatties Talk Back. Yes.
Fatties
Publishing,
Talk
performing,
Back.
And curating across genre and medium, Caleb's cultural work reads, responds to, and challenges tropes and discourses regarding race, sex, sexuality, and disability in media and culture. Ultimately, they are interested in engaging embodied difference as a generative resource towards fatter understandings of collective freedom. Dr. Luna earned their PhD in performance studies with a designated emphasis in gender and women's studies from the University of California, Berkeley. They are currently an assistant professor of feminist studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara.
Oh, yeah?
Welcome, Dr. Luna. And we will go ahead and get started.
Okay. Before this person talks. Oh, I missed a 10. Oh my God, Hans, I'm so sorry. I totally didn't fucking see it. W's in the chat for Hans. Really apologize for missing that, bro. It didn't pop up on my screen. I'm so sorry, Hans. W's. Sorry, Hans. Don't be offended. Guys, just so you know, Hans actually texted me a picture of himself yesterday or the other day. And I'm happy to confirm that Hans is absolutely a Black trans woman. A Black Mexican Latinx trans woman. Just so you guys know. Okay, now back to this. So this person that we're looking at was studied feminist and women's studies. This person that we're looking at is a professor of women's studies at University of California, Santa Barbara, I think they said, or maybe Santa Cruz. 1 in the chat if you think this person is a tranny. 2 in the chat if you think this person was born a man. I'm just saying, we've been given a series of clues here. We've been given a series of clues. The clues are they, them studied women's studies in college and is currently a feminist professor. 1 for tranny, 2 for born a man. Let's listen to the credentials again, and then we'll let them talk, and you guys will figure it out.
Caleb Luna is an artist, public scholar, and theorist of the body. They are an award-winning educator and scholar.
Cynthia! I dis-oi fat, okay? Thank you, Cynthia. Cynthia disavows fatness. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for the super chat.
The best-selling author of Revenge Body by Black Lawrence Press 2023, and co-host of the podcast Unsolicited Baddies Talk Back. Yes. Publishing, performing, and curating across genre and medium, Caleb's cultural work reads, responds to, and challenges tropes and discourses regarding race, sex, sexuality, and disability in media and culture. Ultimately, they are interested in engaging embodied difference as a generative resource towards fatter understandings of collective freedom. Dr. Luna earned their PhD in performance studies with a designated emphasis in gender and women's studies from the University of California, Berkeley. They are currently an assistant professor of feminist studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara.
I vote tranny. I vote tranny. I think this is a woman. I think this is a woman that is a they them queer that has taken testosterone, and that's my prediction on this.
Welcome, Dr. Luna, and we will go ahead and get started. I will go off screen, and please feel free to enter questions into the chat, and we'll talk toward the end with our Q&A. Thank you, everybody.
So hey everyone.
Yo! If you said tranny, W's for everyone who predicted that was gonna be a trans person. W's for everyone who predicted number 1. I don't think that one was that hard to ascertain though, right? So just so people are aware, and this is for people who are new, this person is probably not trans as in transition. This person has not, I want to be like, and I want you to listen for this. This person has not transitioned from woman to man. This person has transcended gender or transformed their gender to go outside of the gender binary. They have queered their gender. They are not a he, him. They are a they, them. They are non-binary. In the intro, you did not hear them say he. You heard them deliberately say they did this, they did that. So there's a difference between trans as in transition and queer. Queer is not about transitioning from man to woman or woman to man because they don't believe that gender should exist. They want to abolish the categories of men and women, which they believe are social constructs created by capitalism. This is very different than someone like Blair White or Caitlyn Jenner, who transitioned from a man to a woman. Those are very different things. This person is not fucking around with their gender for the same reason that Blair White and Caitlyn Jenner are fucking around with their gender. They like those two, they want to pass as women. They want to live as women. This person doesn't want to live as a man. This person does not believe they're a man. They are a non-binary they, them that lives outside of the oppressive gender hierarchy. 1 in the chat if you understand this. 2 in the chat if this is confusing. One in the chat if you understand this. 2 in the chat if this is confusing. Okay. It's a really important distinction, guys. We always need to separate these groups. There are people who want to transition from man to woman or woman to man. That is one problem. It's not a LARPer. That's not true. That is one problem. Okay. That is its own category. Then there are people who want to go outside of gender to abolish Bro, if you keep spamming my chat, I'm going to come over and block you. So cut that shit out on Twitter. I don't want to have to come over there, but I will come over there and block your ass if you keep it up. There are people who want to go outside the gender binary. Okay, so hang on. I need to block this asshole on Twitter because this asshole. We have our conservative retard on Twitter who's already causing disruption, and I can see it. I know that all you can't see it, but I can see it. And so now we have to mute this person and we have to block this person because this person is being disruptive and doesn't want to fucking listen. Go away, asshole. Goodbye. This is why we gatekeep the community. So, there is a big difference between people who want to transition from a man to woman or woman to man and people who want to go outside the gender binary. Going outside of the gender binary is a political belief. It is not about living as your own true self as the different gender. These are two completely different problems. So you have to separate the problems in your head, because when we're talking about queer activists are never transitioning from a man to a woman or a woman to a man. So we have to separate them out.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you, Wendy, for that introduction. And I also want to thank Shavis, Stephanie, and Jamie for inviting me to speak, and for all your organizational labor and to make this amazing and necessary event happen. I'm so grateful to be here. And I want to say, while we're all calling in from different parts of the world, I want to name before we begin that I'm calling in from the Chumash land
blessing
in so-called Southern California.
So-called Southern
so
California.
I was asked to speak a little bit about my journey in relation to health today. So I'm going to share some of my work in bringing fat studies and queer of color critique together, both in my own identitarian formation, as well as how we can think particularly queerness together into a fatter understanding of collective freedom. And to give you all an idea of the structure of today's talk, first, I will share some information about my work for those who might not yet be familiar. Then I'll lay out the framework and methodology in approaching what I call aesthetics of health. I'll survey some of the influential queer media I encountered in my own identitarian.
Hang on. You can be a straight white man and be queer. Queer is a political ideology. It is not about your gender. It is not about being gay. It's not about being trans. You can be a straight, white, cisgender man and be queer by declaring that you are queer and adopting a far left extremist political stance. That's what it means.
Development. And I'll share about the embodied performance of fatness that these encounters inspired. Then I'll thread these together to articulate what I call a fat, queer, anti-racist politic. And I'll close with some of my own artistic production that meditates on how fat subjects approach the question of health and weight stigma. And hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So please drop your questions in the chat as we go if they come to you. Or in the Q&A box here. I also want to flag that I will be referencing some intense topics today, topics you might not expect when you think about weight stigma. But for me, I cannot talk about weight stigma without talking about anti-Blackness and colonization. We'll touch on genocide, slavery, and ultimately the Black Lives Matter movement. I mentioned racism, eating disorders, and body image, as well as HIV and AIDS, and the obesity epidemic. So I understand that these topics can bring up a lot. So I please encourage you all to engage at your own pace, especially if you need to step away, leave, or just kind of hang out, mute, fast forward if you're watching later. Please, I encourage you all to do that. So just to begin about me, like Wendy had mentioned, I'm currently an assistant professor of feminist studies at UC Santa Barbara. I hold a PhD in performance
taxpayer-funded institution
studies with a designated emphasis in gender and women's studies from UC Berkeley. And my areas of expertise are fat studies, queer of color critique, and media studies. And hopefully that will be legible after today and also give you some insight into how I'm approaching this conversation. So I come to the institution as both an artist practitioner and a public scholar with a performance practice, which includes burlesque and poetry.
Burlesque?
My debut
What did I
poetry
fucking say? What did I fucking say? What did I fucking say? Every queer activist is also an amateur porn star. This person does burlesque. What the fuck did I say? See, people don't believe me. They don't believe me. And I promise you, if you don't go to this person's Instagram page. Don't fucking do it. I promise you it's not just clothed fucking burlesque. Don't ever doubt me. Don't ever doubt me. Every time you're like, Karlyn, are you sure about that crazy thing you just said? I always turn out to be right. And you will learn this over time. That's why we have the Karlyn is right tip jar. If you ever doubt me, you owe me $2 when I'm eventually proven right. Fat pride does go directly against traditional gender attractiveness signals. Well, that's the whole point. They believe that capitalists have created what it means to be attractive. It's a rebellion against capitalism. It's a political statement. Again, with the burlesque.
And hopefully that will be legible after today, and also give you some insight into how I'm approaching this conversation. So I come to the institution as both an artist practitioner and a public scholar with a performance practice, which includes burlesque and poetry. My debut poetry collection, Revenge Body, was released last year through Pneumatic Press, and I'm excited to say the second edition was just published through Black Lawrence Press as well. And while this is a personal narrative, it is informed by my research in fat and disability studies, as well as my lived experience as a fat and disabled non-binary queer of color. And we'll actually...
A fat, disabled, non-binary queer of color. I told you this person was not trans, as in transition from man to woman or woman to man. I told you this person was trans, as in non-binary queer outside of the gender binary. This is all very predictable when you understand the political ideology, guys.
Was released last year through Pneumatic Press, and I'm excited to say the second edition was just published through Black Lawrence Press as well. And while this is a personal narrative, it is informed by my research in fat and disability studies, as well as my lived experience as a fat and disabled non-binary queer of color. And we'll actually, I'll read a selection from this as we close. My public scholarship practice continues with a podcast I co-host, Unsolicited Fatties Talk Back, where we respond to cultural performances of fat phobia, most often through Dear Prudence advice columns. The podcast has 5 hosts, all of whom are fat and disabled. 4 of us identify as trans or non-binary, and the other 3 hosts of color are all Black. In this way, we intervene in dominant conversations within fat activism and weight stigma that historically privileged, non-disabled, cis heterosexual white women. My academic research situates bodily discourses in contemporary media cultures within the ongoing settler project of disciplining race, size, and sexuality. It examines what I call fat mediascapes with an emphasis on minoritarian subjects across gender, sexuality, race, and ability. I map the circulation of ideas of fatness throughout US media and culture, tending to how fatness performs and is performed, even in its own absence, by a variety of social actors and across mediums. This is a necessarily multi-ethnic, multimedia studies project, making fat embodiment legible to scholars and activists of embodied difference and integrating analysis of size into coalitional anti-oppression movements. Throughout, I use size as an analytic to underscore the shared yet differential impact of weight stigma on all bodies.
This is PhD dissertation level research, guys. This is what our taxes are funding in colleges.
I anchor this theory with
this was only a couple years ago. This is not that old.
Keywords, the aesthetic and the erotic, to consider how colonial aesthetics have shaped normative or acceptable erotic subjectivities and practices.
Erotic.
In response, I look to how minoritarian subjects access identity, connection, pleasure, joy, and resistance anyway. I use my own lifespan from the late 1980s forward as a temporal frame, and my work is marked by narrative
This person could be as many as like 8 years younger than me. This person said they were born in the late 80s. I was born in 1981. This person is like significantly fucking younger than me. God damn, that's so fucking wild, man. W old sub, thank you so much for the gifted channel membership. We are up to 25% of the way to our goal. Really appreciate it, guys.
To varying degrees of my personal relationship to the events or objects explored. Mapping my own memories of these cultural moments allows me to connect dominant aesthetic and representational practices with how the quotidian life of weight stigma is experienced as a queer and abjectly racialized subject. And so with that, I'll start by saying I think of settler colonialism as what Patrick Wolf describes as a structure, not an event. By this, I mean I'm attentive to colonization not as an event with clear temporal boundaries, nor as an event that has concluded. Rather, I'm attentive to how techniques of colonization and colonization itself adopts new methods with culture. To understand the events of the present, we need to situate them within the devastation of colonization. Contrary to a contemporary understanding of racial fat phobia and weight stigma as a recent phenomenon given rise to by beauty magazines, diet industry profits, and celebrity culture,
See, they're saying that capitalism created these unrealistic beauty standards to sell makeup and to sell weight loss products and to sell gym memberships and to sell all these products to people who are all trying to achieve this unrealistic beauty standard that has been created by capitalism. The reason that a lot of leftists, especially the queer ones, are fat or they look weird, they have weird haircuts, they have all these crazy, really bad tattoos all over their arms and things like that. The reason is they are okay. No, you're saying way too much stupid shit in my chat. I really should have given you a warning by now. Cut it with the stupid shit, or we're gonna ban you. You have to prove you're smart enough to be here, bro. The reason that all of these queer activists like are overweight or they have weird haircuts or they have all these crazy tattoos is it is a rebellion against the capitalist system. It is a rebellion against what they call the unrealistic beauty standards created by capitalism. They are actively queering their appearance. It is a political statement. People ask all the time, why do they all look weird? Well, first of all, not all leftists look weird. Not all leftists are queer. So you have to stop stereotyping. Like some leftists look perfectly normal. Some communists look like if you saw some communists walking down the street, you would think they were conservatives, honestly. So you got to stop stereotyping people and how they look. But there is a segment of the left, they're the queer Marxist left, that believe that queering their appearance or openly rebelling against what they call the normative capitalist beauty standards, they are doing this as a political statement. That's not to say that everyone who has tattoos is queer. That's not true. Queer people have a very specific kind of tattoo. They usually tend to be really, really, really ugly and really bad. That's not to say that everyone has weird haircuts. They're queer. Some people just have weird haircuts. But like, when someone is getting their hair cut into one of those mullet-like things where they have the little bangs and the shaved sides of their head and they have a mullet, that is basically a uniform queer haircut. They are doing it to rebel against the beauty standards. When you have these fat liberation people, they are saying that capitalism created diet culture and tries to convince us that we need to be thin. They are staying fat as a political statement and so on and so forth. Why did they dye their hair? They're rebelling against capitalism. Why did they do this? They're rebelling against the normative capitalist system. This is what people need to really understand. This is all a political statement. They are doing it because they genuinely believe this. This is not a LARP. This is not a costume. This is who they are. And the fact that this is who they are and this is how they see the world, that they need to undo literally every aspect of our culture that they all believe was created by capitalism, that's actually a really, really, really scary prospect. Goro on Rumble says, why do they think it's better to lower the standards than to try to look better? They don't believe they're lowering the standards, guys. They believe the standard for beauty, what is considered beautiful, was established by capitalism. So they don't believe that they look less good. Lena Dunham looked like a fucking psycho at the Met Gala. And by the way, I actually kind of like the Met Gala because I actually like seeing all the crazy dresses. But Lena Dunham, did anyone see Lena Dunham at the Met Gala yesterday? Let me find a picture of her real quick because, like, I mean, I'm sorry, like, what the fuck is that shit? Oh shit, and there's a big ad in the middle of the page. Why not? Of course, why wouldn't there be an ad in the middle of the page when I'm trying to show a picture? Why wouldn't there be an ad? There's several ads, in fact. Thank you, page 6, for 8,000 fucking ads. Must be run by Jews. Anyway, Lena Dunham is a queer activist. Okay? Lena Dunham is a queer Marxist. Lena Dunham is fat as a political statement. She is rejecting capitalist beauty standards. Lena Dunham has crazy fucking hair sometimes because she's rejecting capitalist beauty standards. This is what this manifests like in real life. Okay? So it is an internalized political statement. They really do believe this. They do not, in their heads, I swear to God this is true. They believe that the standard for beauty was set by an oppressive system, and therefore they don't look less good than anyone else. They simply are queering the beauty standards of society by trying to make there be no standard at all. Does that make sense to everyone? That was a fucking ugly dress. I'm sorry. Like, you can be a bigger person and wear clothes that are interesting and artistic. That's a fucking ugly dress. Anyway, yeah, Billie Eilish is queer as well. Yeah, 100%. 100%. 100%. Oh, shit. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I wanted to do, but it's okay to fix. There we go.
Stigma and
Listen to this part again.
Event with clear temporal boundaries, nor as an event that has concluded. Rather, I'm attentive to how techniques of colonization and colonization itself adopts new methods with culture. To understand the events of the present, we need to situate them within the devastation of colonization. Contra to a contemporary understanding of racial fat phobia and weight stigma as a recent phenomenon given rise to by beauty magazines, diet industry profits, and celebrity culture, weight stigma and fat objection has its roots as a product of racial objection with a long history in the colonizing of the Americas that predates the founding of the United States itself. Cultural anxieties around body size and its aesthetic representation of gastronomic and erotic discipline.
Gastronomic and erotic discipline.
Europe's earliest settlers expressed concern over their bodily production and its subsequent capacity to weather illness. The primal anxiety for the earliest settlers was mass death, both of themselves as well as native people. Columbus himself attributed this to the Amerindian diet and environment, as if they were merely poorly equipped for survival. The settler body has always been one disciplined to withstand and reproduce violence, violence which produces a crisis and blames its victims for the consequences under the guises of health and wellness. This process.
When they say settler, guys, they mean capitalist. I want to make sure everyone understands the language. When they're talking about settler colonization or settler colonialism, when they say settler, they mean capitalist. They mean the person that came to steal the land from the indigenous people and force the oppressive force of capitalism onto the land in the form of private property ownership. That is what they're saying, okay? So you have to code switch in your head. Settler means capitalist. Settler means boss. Settler means bourgeois. Settler means private property owner. And again, They believe that happened in the United States. They believe that the Europeans came to the United States to steal the land from the indigenous people and privatize it under the oppressive force of capitalism. The reason they are pro-Palestine, it has nothing to do with fucking Muslims. They don't really care about Muslims as much as conservatives think they do. They believe Israel stole the land from the Palestinians, privatized it under the oppressive force of capitalism. Israel and the United States, to them, are the same. They are the settler colonists. That's why they are against Israel. Has nothing to do with them being Jewish, has to do with them being the settler colonists. And that is why they want land back or liberation in the United States, because they believe the United States is literally built on capitalism. Listen again so we can hear how the language is used.
With a long history in the colonizing of the Americas that predates the founding of the United States itself. Cultural anxieties around body size and its aesthetic representation of gastronomic and erotic discipline have been present since contact. Europe's earliest settlers expressed concern over their bodily production and its subsequent capacity to weather illness. The primal anxiety for the earliest settlers was mass death, both of themselves as well as native people. Columbus himself attributed this to the Amerindian diet and environment, as if they were merely poorly equipped for survival. The settler body has always been one disciplined to withstand and reproduce violence, violence which produces a crisis.
The settler body has always been one, I want to make sure I get the quote correctly,
as if they were merely poorly equipped for survival. The settler body has always been one disciplined to withstand and
the settler body has always been one disciplined to withstand and reproduce violence. The capitalist body is one that has been disciplined to withstand and reproduce violence. They believe capitalism is literally violence, guys. Private property ownership is literally violence. This is why they feel entitled to attack people, to attack the cops, to get physically violent, because they believe that when they are fighting capitalism and the cops are a representation of capitalism, pretty much everyone who wants to uphold the current system is a representation of capitalism. They believe when they get violent, they are entitled to, because the oppressive system of capitalism is literally violence. Does everyone understand? 1 in the chat if you understand, 2 in the chat if you're confused about that. W's Nathaniel, thank you so much for the gifted channel membership. I really appreciate that. Guys, if I'm teaching you something today, please feel free to throw in a couple channel memberships. That would really help me out. We have 74 more to go to hit the goal.
did this to the Amerindian diet and environment, as if they were merely poorly equipped for survival. The settler body has always been one disciplined to withstand and reproduce violence, violence which produces a crisis and blames its victims for the consequences under the guises of health and wellness. This process has transformed into what we might call diet culture today. This is one facet of racial formation.
Wait. They just said capitalist violence has transformed into diet culture. Did everyone hear that? We're going to go back and listen again. But what they said was capitalist violence transformed into diet culture today. Diet culture is literally violence, guys. W Cynthia, thank you so much for the 5 gifted channel memberships. We appreciate you so much. Up to 31. Well done, guys. Really appreciate the support. Let's listen again because that was funny as hell. I know it's the last time we'll listen, I promise.
Europe's earliest settlers expressed concern over their bodily production and its subsequent capacity to weather illness. The primal anxiety for the earliest settlers was mass death, both of themselves as well as native people. Columbus himself attributed this to the Amerindian diet and environment, as if they were merely poorly equipped for survival. The settler body has always been one disciplined to withstand and reproduce violence, violence which produces a crisis and blames its victims for the consequences under the guises of health and wellness. This process has transformed into what we might call diet culture today.
There it is.
This is one facet of racial formation in the triangulation of the New World, the Old World, and the transatlantic slave trade.
Diets are literally a form of capitalist violence, guys. W's Old Sub, thank you so much for the gifted channel membership. Guys, you can't let Cynthia and Old Sub and Hans do all the work. If you haven't donated a channel membership yet, come on. Please don't make the same people do all the work. I know more than you can support what I'm doing, so I feel so guilty when they donate so many channel memberships. You guys got to chip in too, okay?
Imagined fatness of Black and Indigenous populations around the world were translated and weaponized during the colonial moment to script fat embodiment as primitive and by extension situate Black and Indigenous populations as uncivilized and such inferior.
They framed Indigenous cultures that had fat bodies as primitive. And therefore, the colonists were superior to the indigenous fat people. And that creates a system of oppression and hierarchy. Mitchell, thank you. So appreciate it. Tim, don't worry about it. We'll look forward to you getting that job and we'll congratulate you when you do, bro. In the meantime, we hope people who have the resources to support end up supporting the channel. That's all I can ask for. Really appreciate it, guys. 1/3 of the way to our goal. That's fucking awesome.
Obviously, variety in size, both in height and weight, is common around the world, and not all Black or Indigenous people now or have ever been fat. Still, the fiction of this idea does nothing to undermine its power and utility in the project of white supremacy. In contrast, thinness was produced as what Sabrina Strings calls good racial breeding, and particularly emphasized for white women.
Wow! Thinness is good racial breeding. Thinness is good racial breeding. Sounds rather racist to me, if I'm being honest about it. W's James, thank you so much for the gifted channel membership. One in the chat if you think that's racist. 2 in the chat if you think that's definitely not racist at all. And I'm not saying racism is in capitalism. I'm saying racism as like, that actually seems racist. I'm going to send this to Amalek. I'm sending it to Amalek right now. Sending it to Amalek. Hang on 1 second. Read what's on that slide. Okay.
The burden of exemplifying the supremacy of whiteness through their so-called beauty. Colonial moment to script fat embodiment as primitive, and by extension,
we might have an
Black and
amazing
Indigenous
clip.
populations as uncivilized and such inferior. Obviously, variety in size, both in height and weight, is common around the world, and not all Black or Indigenous people now or have ever been fat. Still, the fiction of this idea does nothing to undermine its power and utility in the project of white supremacy. In contrast, thinness was produced as what Sabrina Strings calls good racial breeding, and particularly emphasized for white women, cast with the burden of exemplifying the supremacy of whiteness through their so-called beauty.
Thinness is a concept to refer to white women having superior beauty over Black women. That's what that says. Thinness means white women are bred to have superior beauty over Black women. Kind of seems a little bit racist to me if I'm being honest about it. Again, that's racist. That's racist. That's racist.
Still, the fiction of this idea does nothing to undermine its power and utility in the project of white supremacy. In contrast, thinness was produced as what Sabrina Strings calls good racial breeding, and particularly emphasized for white women, cast with the burden of exemplifying the supremacy of whiteness through their so-called beauty, which was itself a constructed phenomenon away from both Blackness and fatness. I'm also inspired by what Scott Morganson calls the biopolitics of settler sexuality.
Did I miss a channel membership? A Sheikah Lago came in. Sheikah Lago W! Thank you, Sheikah Lago, for the channel membership! Appreciate it, bro. Really appreciate you.
For Morganson, settler sexuality is defined by attempting to replace native kinship, embodiment, and desire within the heteropatriarchal sexual modernity, exemplary of white settler civilization. The capacious experience of embodiment expands settler sexuality from a project of disciplining those which fail the burgeoning racial, gender, and sexual stratifications to include analyses of size as well as ability. Weight stigma is one expression of this disciplining apparatus.
Tolkien fan, it was a 5 channel memberships. Thank you so much, Tolkien fan. W's for Tolkien fan, guys. We do W's in the chat every time people give channel memberships. They're not only supporting me, they're supporting all of you guys as well. Welcome to all the new channel members. 40 so far today.
I read the AIDS crisis and the so-called obesity epidemic as exemplary of how the biopolitics of settler sexuality have shifted to new technologies to discipline racial and sexual others. Because the slow response to the AIDS crisis was informed by a presumption that the disease was targeting those in the lower echelons of the population, even as those whose lives were taken by the slow response of the state to the epidemic exceeded the category of gay men, they were still byproducts of the biopolitical process, and their imagination is outside the norms of settler sexuality. The letting die of minoritarian sexual, social, and racial subjects in the context of the AIDS crisis is merely one installment of the ongoing genocide of indigenous.
Guys, any reference to the AIDS crisis is always a reference to the ACT UP movement. The ACT UP movement, for people who are new, was the first, one of the first really radical, militant queer movements that laid the groundwork for what we see from queer activism today. Started in the late 80s in New York City, also in San Francisco, but mostly in New York City. But we've covered this extensively. I highly recommend that you watch the documentary about the ACT UP movement if you want to understand it. We've watched it a couple times on the channel. If you haven't seen it yet, you can go back and find it in the archive.
People and cultures, and with them a particular kind of gender and sexual diversity heavily targeted for eradication. Thus, we can think of the biopolitical response to the AIDS crisis within the biopolitical settler colonial project that is the United States broadly. In other words, ongoing genocide of indigenous people and cultures, and with them a particular kind of gender and sexual diversity heavily targeted for eradication. Thus, we can think of the biopolitical response to the AIDS crisis within the biopolitical settler colonial project that is
the colonial project that is the United States is what them is about to say. The colonial project means the United States is founded on capitalism when the settlers came and stole the land from the indigenous people. That's what colonization means. Hey, we got April in with 5 gifted channel memberships. April, thank you so much for your donation. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the channel. W's for April, guys. Get that almost halfway. Holy shit. I thought today was going to be a little bit more of a struggle, if I'm being honest about it. That's all right, though. We're watching the craziest fucking content on the internet.
Diversity heavily targeted for eradication. Thus, we can think of the biopolitical response to the AIDS crisis within the biopolitical settler colonial project that is the United States broadly. In other words, colonization is the public health crisis.
Colonization is the public health crisis.
While settler sexuality has
capitalism is the public health crisis. Colonization means colonizing indigenous land, stealing land. Colonization or capitalism is the public health crisis.
A kind of gender and sexual diversity heavily targeted for eradication. Thus, we can think of the biopolitical response to the AIDS crisis within the biopolitical settler colonial project that is the United States broadly. In other words, colonization is the public health crisis. While settler sexuality has been instituting and formalizing a classed, racialized heterosexual supremacy and compulsory thinness beside one another for centuries, they begin to
heterosexual supremacy. Dragon Tail, thank you for the super chat, bro. Appreciate you. This is why bodybuilding is white supremacy, and black and brown people who engage in gym and fitness aesthetics are upholding white supremacy. Yeah, I mean, I was to understand that some of the most successful bodybuilders in the world were actually black, but I guess those very, very, very large black men are upholding diet and fitness culture. Thank you so much for the super chat, Dragon Tail.
when gay and bisexual men were especially susceptible to a risk of HIV transmission,
AIDS
but also
crisis.
when the specter of HIV informed the way that gay and bisexual men viewed their bodies and body size, especially in relation to their own health and longevity. Excuse me. In this moment, the conception of the diseased body applies not only to those who are HIV positive, but also to those who are immediately deemed unhealthy merely through a brief overview of body size. This is the phenomenon I'm describing as an aesthetics of health, a transference of health status from biological markers to a look, easily visible not only through a lack of facial lesions, but also a bodily morphology that resists association with disease. Through the AIDS crisis and the obesity epidemic, cellular sexuality produces both fatness and queerness as signifiers of ill health and early death. On the heels of the AIDS crisis, the Cellular Organization, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, formally declares the obesity epidemic in 1999. And I just want to highlight that this screen cap of the CDC press release is simply one way that media shapes our ideas of weight and weight stigma, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. But here, the settler state wasted no time in manufacturing interventions, particularly for Black, Latinx, and Indigenous populations, who are most represented in categories of overweight or obesity. Performances of concern at the rates of obesities in communities of color, as well as attempts to discipline us, become perpetual restagings of the colonial encounter. The biopolitics of settler sexuality continue to perpetuate defining narratives of health and longevity as the reward for proper care, safe, read heteronormative sex, a balanced diet, and regular movement for all populations. In doing so, it shifts responsibility for care away from the state and even community and to the individual.
You think?
Those who are fat and those who are HIV positive are also seen as the victims of their own lifestyles.
Yeah, true.
I want to note that it's quite a surreal experience to be writing this during the ongoing COVID pandemic as well. I continue to think about what this means to be living through another biopolitical event.
This was in 2023. This was in 2023. This was not in 2020. This was not in 2021. This was not in 2022. This was in 2023 that this presentation was given. And them just said, we are still living in the COVID pandemic, because they literally, to this very day, literally still believe that we are living in the COVID pandemic.
Those who are fat and those who are HIV positive are also seen as the victims of their own lifestyles. I want to note that it's quite a surreal experience to be writing this during the ongoing COVID pandemic as well. I continue to think about what this means.
Red Menace, thank you so much for the gifted channel membership. A big W to you, good sir. Thank you, thank you.
To be living through another biopolitical event exacerbated by strategic messaging by media outlets under colonial governance. I'm constantly thinking back to the AIDS crisis to ask, what can we learn from queer elders and ancestors about surviving and flourishing in this moment of state abandonment amidst crisis? As such, my approach to weight stigma under settler sexuality is deeply inspired by the work of Black lesbian mother warrior poet and fat disabled ancestor Audre Lorde, who famously theorized the erotic as a considered source of power and information within our lives. I echo Lorde's insistence that the erotic is inclusive of, but necessarily extends beyond sex acts, a kind of power rooted in a deep reverence of sensual pleasure that ripples out to every area of our lives once we harness it.
Hey, cool. Pistol Annie says, got my copy of Debunking the Communist Manifesto in the mail today. Pumped to begin reading this. I've ordered the fairy tale book for my kiddo. We'll be here tomorrow. That's fucking awesome, Pistol. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know how you feel about the book. Listen, Debunking the Communist Manifesto is a reference. It's kind of meant to be like a reference manual. So it's a little bit wordy at times. I tried to make it interesting and as short as possible and all that stuff. But like, it's a 400-page reference manual for how to debunk the Communist Manifesto. That's actually what that is. And so so don't kill yourself trying to read that whole book in one stretch. It can be a lot. It can be a little bit heavy at times. But it's useful as a reference manual. I really do hope you enjoy the Communist Manifesto, a revolutionary fairy tale. I was just thinking I really need to just fucking hunker down. I've been doing some writing on my books that I'm working on, but it's been sporadic. I was really thinking last night, I was like, it's time to fucking hunker down and just write some more books again. I haven't published a book in almost a year. I really thought I was going to publish more books last year, but sometimes writing is very difficult, okay? And sometimes ideas need to marinate and percolate, and that's just the way it goes. And I think my books now will be better for it, but I need to fucking hunker down. I need to finish the re-education book. I need to finish the queer Marxism book. I need to finish 4 or 5 other books that I'm working on. I need to finish the fucking dictionary. It'll happen. Don't worry. It'll happen. Always does. Eventually.
Pun intended. Building on Lord, I define fat erotics as a spectrum of pleasures ranging from refusing objection to eating and engaging in sex.
Yeah, you're not, I'm just going to be really blunt. You're not getting an audiobook anytime soon. There are apps that you can use that will read it. I understand people like audiobooks. I don't personally feel like recording an audiobook. I've done an audiobook before. I didn't like it. So maybe someday there will be an audiobook, but my just to be like really upfront with you, it's not in the plan for right now. I have about 8 billion things I need to do before that. And so you can get some sort of app that will read the book to you. I don't mean to be a dick about it, but like people ask me about it all the time and I'm like, I got other shit to do. I would love to be able to do it, but like not right now, okay?
Sex as or with a
Cool,
fat
Ashley.
person.
Let me know if it works.
In touch with the erotic, with the depths of pleasure possible, we become less and less willing to comply with the oppressive forces in our lives, including aesthetics. I define fat aesthetics as an umbrella term for the visual form of fat bodies and how they style themselves, as well as cultural tropes of fat embodiment. Both fat aesthetics and erotics are politically neutral and can be enacted towards positive and empowering or negative and objectifying ends by subjects across the spectrum of size. I'm also deeply inspired by Lord's writing in her seminal essay, The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House, where she argues, quote,
the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house means the capitalist tools will never dismantle capitalism. That's what that means.
As women, we have been taught to either ignore our differences or view them as causes for separation and suspicion rather than as forces for change. But without community, there is no liberation. But community must not mean a shedding of our differences, nor the pathetic pretense those differences do not exist. Responding to this call, my work takes seriously Lord's call to confront embodied difference as fundamental to mobilizing our collective power. It threads together differences of race, size, gender, sexuality, ability, and more to offer holistic frameworks for analysis. I use size as an exemplary stage where we are all differentially impacted, yet sketch possibilities to come together against fat and racial objection to bring the future into being. So here I think about media not just as representation, but in many ways as pedagogy. Against the backdrop of colonization and settler sexuality, media teaches us who we are and, perhaps more importantly, what we can be, including how we can build more sustainable futures built on our collective power. Since it may be our first encounters with queer and
what are you saying? What they them is saying is that we can use media to help vision what the future communist utopia looks like when we are in more of our collective power. The left very much believes in writing books that help them vision the future communist utopia, creating art that helps them vision the future communist utopia, using the resources they have to allow people to understand that this is a vision that we want for the world that we think is going to be better. They're trying to actually help people visualize what does it look like to live in a world without capitalism. So this is actually very, very important, guys. They're saying we are helping people to come around to our point of view, to see a utopian society that will be wonderful and amazing and not at all oppressive, and everyone will be happy and everyone will have access to everything they need. Everyone will have access to all the money and all the resources, except there won't be any money because they're going to eliminate it. All that good stuff.
differentially impacted, yet sketch possibilities to come together against fat and racial objection to bring the future into being. So here I think about media not just as representation, but in many ways as pedagogy. Against the backdrop of colonization and settler sexuality, media teaches us who we are and, perhaps more importantly, what we can be, including how we can build more sustainable futures built on our collective power. Since it may be our first encounters with queer and trans adults as young people, it teaches us not just that we exist, but how to be queer or trans as well. Part of that education is a relationship to white stigma, one that is largely negative, but also
we got a little sub in with the super chat. Being the leader and foundation of knowledge of the cult keeps you pretty busy, but no pressure. No, I mean, I want to write the books. I need the books to be fucking written is the thing. It's just like, when I start writing books, I basically go into a cocoon-like state, and I don't really leave it, and it ends up sucking up all of my time and all of my energy. And that's what needs to happen. I need to finish at least 2 of these books. I need them to be done because I want people to have them. I want to be able to do book clubs. I want to be able to do classes. I want to be able to reference them. There's many more that I want to write, but like there's 2 in particular, the re-education book and the queer Marxism book. I need those fucking books done. And I've been dicking around with the re-education book for like a couple of years. And I do believe, like genuinely, the re-education book, when it gets done now, will be better than it would have been a couple of years ago. It'll be like significantly better. Like really, like I'm glad that I didn't publish it back then because it will be better now. But I need them fucking done. It's like I can feel the fucking pressure. It's like the universe is telling me, finish the fucking books, Karlyn. Like, I know, spirit guides. I know. Leave me alone.
complex and mutable. I know this experience intimately. Growing up in the Houston suburbs in the 1990s and early 2000s, I looked to the cultural artifacts surrounding me for a glimpse of affirmation, reflection, and above all, answers as I struggled with identifying and articulating my sexuality. I was luckier than many who came before me to have grown up in an era with gay leading characters in the hit network sitcom Will and Grace, which originally aired during my middle school and even beyond my high school years. As many of you may know, the show followed its title characters, a white gay lawyer, Will, and his Jewish interior designer best friend, Grace, who cohabitate in Manhattan, along with Will's gay best friend, Jack, and Grace's assistant, Karen. It was undoubtedly groundbreaking in its representation for the time. However, growing up in the rural suburbs to working class Tehanic parents, the show's class, race, and body politics often felt more alienating than affirming. A specific arc from its fifth season exemplified the challenges I encountered attempting to formulate my queer.
Why did Will and Grace, which is about a woman and a gay man and his gay best friend and another woman, why would Will and Grace feel alienating to a queer activist? This is a pop quiz for the chat. I want to know how much you guys have been paying attention. Why is this queer, non-binary, disabled person saying Will and Grace felt really alienating to me? Why would he be doing that? Or they then be doing that? Yeah, Will and Grace are normative. Will and Grace are normative. What does that mean, Bot? Well, I mean, maybe that's part of it. They're normies. It affirms gender. Yes, it affirms gender. Don't just say the word capitalism, guys. Actually explain what it means. Homonormativity. Will is representative of homonormativity. That is gay people who assimilate to the norms of the straights. Yep, they're conforming to gender. They're also doing rainbow capitalism, profiting under the capitalist system by being gay. Homonormative. Homonormative. Close, but homonormative. It's too capitalist. It's homonormative. They participated in capitalism. Will and Grace upholds rainbow capitalism. It's the exploitation of like gay people for capitalist purposes. Also to homonormativity. They're all cis and wealthy. That's part of it. They are part of the capitalist system. That's what homonormativity is, guys. For people who are new, homonormativity basically means gay people and really anyone, but like it's specific for gay people who have assimilated to the capitalist norms of the straights. And then there's heteronormative, which just means like assimilating to capitalist norms. But like homonormative is like, it's like a slur. It's like saying you're homonormative. It's like a fucking slur. It's like calling someone the N-word when you're being a dick about it. So it means like gay people who betray the queers by assimilating to capitalism and upholding capitalist values. Yeah, it's normative assimilation. Exactly. It affirms gender. Exactly. Yep, I would say they also did affirm capitalist beauty standards for sure, for sure. Queer is an anti-assimilationist ideology. This is a really great point. We haven't put it this specifically. Queer is a far left anti-assimilationist ideology, whereas Will and Grace is not. Will and Grace is an assimilationist, very normative kind of scenario. So it's actually directly counter to what this person wants as a queer anti-assimilationist. Well done, guys. Well done.
Gay lawyer, Will, and his Jewish interior designer best friend, Grace, who cohabitate in Manhattan, along with Will's gay best friend, Jack, and Grace's assistant, Karen. It was undoubtedly groundbreaking in its representation for the time. However, growing up in the rural suburbs to working class Tehanic's parents, the show's class, race, and body politics often felt more alienating than affirming. A specific arc from its fifth season exemplified the challenges I encountered attempting to formulate my queer identity as a fat, working class person of color in suburban Houston. Originally airing between January and March of 2003, the Fagmalian episodes mirror a common trope of the ugly duckling makeover, while also being instructive of the expected aesthetic and erotic performances of cis gay men. Some of you may remember the arc is clustered into two-part episodes. In the first two, Karen introduces Will and Jack to her cousin Barry, who has recently come out of the closet. They feel burdened by the task of shepherding a newly out gay man into the community and regularly make negative comments about Barry's undesirability, a lack of sex appeal. They relate specifically to his aesthetics. They introduce him to a gym routine, give him a makeover, and begin to educate him on gay divas. The second two episodes in the arc focus on romantic feelings that Will begins to develop for Barry after his makeover, and end with Barry deciding he wants to explore dating as a single gay man instead of attaching himself to Will too quickly upon coming out. The episodes function as pedagogical tools that ultimately delimited what gay male culture and what gay men do and look like under aesthetics of health. White, wealthy, trendy, urban, gym-going diva worshippers. Admittedly, outside of diva worship, Beyonce is all over my work. I struggled to identify with this formulation. I have a visceral memory of watching this show as a young teen in a time of sexual questioning and concluding that I could not be gay if gay was synonymous with what I was witnessing here. And just to put this all into context,
But this person isn't gay. This person was born a woman.
I will remind you all that the body politics of the show itself, and this arc in particular, is very much reflective of how gay men conceptualize health, disease, body size, and body image, shaped by the larger cultural and political climate of the twin colonial crises of the AIDS crisis and obesity epidemic. And this is the climate my journey into queer community and identity through media cultures existed within. Already rife with racism, classism, ableism, weight stigma, and more that remain central to some tenets of the LGBTQIA identity umbrella. Even with this representational access to scripts of gay life, I was left without language and identity to make sense of myself for years. But the phenomenon is not contained to these episodes or this television show by any means. Queer people have always shaped culture as much as we've been shaped by culture. And the racism, sexism, transphobia, classism, ableism, weight stigma, and more that appear in our communities might take specific forms, but they are also reflections of these systems under colonization. And there have always been multiply marginalized members of the community who have pushed the conversation further with their cultural production. For me, the first one I encountered was queer Korean American comedian
Margaret Cho.
In retrospect, Cho's comedy provided a model for me as a fat queer person of color.
Does anyone know who Carrie Smith used to work for? If you don't know who Carrie Smith is, don't worry about it. But for the people who do know who Carrie Smith is a fucking psychopath, by the way. Like, does anyone know who Carrie Smith used to work for when she was a leftist? Does anyone want to take a guess who Carrie Smith worked for when she was on the left? Margaret Cho. Margaret Cho. Carrie was like her manager or her booking agent or something like that. Carrie worked with Margaret Cho and like followed her around to all of her comedy gigs. I swear to God, this is true. Yeah. You didn't know that? Yeah. Fun fact.
Who at the time wasn't sure what to do with any of that.
How about that?
Excuse me. She opens her 2000 special, I'm the One That I Want, with a series of bits about gay men and how much she loves them. Self-identifying as a fag hag and declaring, quote, I love the word faggot because it describes my kind of guy. Just so you know, I'm going to be quoting Margaret Cho a lot here, and she can deliver these jokes much better than I can. So I encourage you all to watch this if you haven't seen it already. But nonetheless, I had never heard someone speak of queerness so candidly, and especially not so positively. Even Will and Grace was quite chaste in its sexual representation, portraying characters that, while openly gay and flamboyant, were still depicted as largely asexual in practice in its early seasons especially. This special focuses largely on Cho's experience as the 23-year-old star of the first Asian American family sitcom All American Girl, which ran for one season from 1994 to 1995. She relates to her audience not only the pressures of being a minoritarian racial subject competing in U.S. media markets, but the specificity of the Asian American family sitcom, and even being protested by some Korean American advocacy organizations. Though I'm not Asian American, as the descendant of Mexican immigrants and detribalized natives, the feeling of being an outsider in your homeland resonated with me as a mestizo in Texas. These were the most impactful memories of cultural figures speaking candidly about race and racism and their very real consequences for minoritarian subjects in the US. They offered a possibility of cross-racial understanding, empathy, and solidarity against multiple racisms. Media cultures have always been a primal site of weight stigma discourses, especially for women in the 90s. And Cho's special exposes and challenges the body standards presented to those whose careers hinge on their ability to conform to them. She talks about how after an executive told Cho the network was concerned about her size, and specifically the size of her face, they hired a trainer to work her out from 7 to 11 a.m.
Oh, no.
6 days a week. She says, I lost weight through diet, through exercise, but mostly through fear. Underscoring not only the effective drive of weight stigma, but the real material stakes of thinness, particularly for multiply marginalized subjects. She specifies that she lost 30 pounds in
Margaret Cho was oppressed by her trainer at the gym that was hired for her by the Hollywood production company, and she was starring in a nationally fucking syndicated show, and she was oppressed by the trainer at the gym because they wanted her to lose 30 fucking pounds while she was on the TV. Okay.
2 weeks, leading to her kidneys collapsing on the set of All American Girl.
Oh,
she responded by scaling back her workouts.
Come on. Bullshit. Well, Margaret Cho worked out so hard for so many hours a day that her kidneys literally collapsed. Bull fucking shit. I used to spend up to like over 4 hours a day in the fucking gym. I went in the morning and I went at night. This is back when I was doing marathons. You can absolutely spend 4 fucking hours in the gym. It's really not that fucking hard. It just takes fucking time. Oh my God. Her kidneys literally collapsed because of the gym.
5 days a week and celebrating when her pilot was picked up. The racial undertones of these expectations are gestured to in her joke. I was so consumed with the idea of fitting in, of being thin like the other Hollywood actresses. I wanted to be skinny like the Friends. Why couldn't I be skinny like the Friends? While not explicitly referenced here, Friends is an interesting reference point. First, for its infamous legacy of whitewashing the formula made popular by the all-Black cast of Living Single, as well as depicting a racially homogenous and predominantly white Manhattan. But most relevant to Cho's point is the extreme thinness of its women leads and the rampant weight stigma with the character of ugly naked fat guy, if you will remember, as well as Monica's ex-fat storyline. While the thin whiteness of Friends largely floated as self-evident at the time of airing, hearing an Asian American woman express frustration at her inability to replicate white women's beauties.
Wait, no fucking way. Hang on. Again, if you guys don't know who Carrie Smith is, don't worry about it. Here is Carrie Smith blogging on Margaret Cho's website in 2004. I've asked Carrie Smith, my webmaster for loveisloveIslove.com, to take over for me today because I'll be without internet for the weekend. Thank you, Carrie. Margaret has graciously allowed me to be a guest blogger while she's traveling today. I wanted to use this opportunity to push a platform I believe gays and lesbians and allies should adopt immediately. Special rights for gays and lesbians, separate and more than equal. Hang on one moment. Hang on one moment. I'm just going to make sure to archive this page real quick. If you don't know who Carrie Smith is, don't worry about it. But, like, you have no fucking idea how much I'm about to use this against this dumb fucking cunt. Archive the page, please. Can you please archive the page? Web, save web page. Save page, just in case something happens. Recent articles keep citing how public support for civil unions has skyrocketed, indicating that a lot of well-meaning but homophobic people are trying to find a middle ground on the gay civil rights issue now that the prospect of full marriage equality is on the horizon. In demanding that all Americans have the same marriage rights, we've upped the ante, so to speak, and in doing so, we broadened the debate and made unconstitutional, separate but equal option of civil unions a lot more appealing to middle America than they were a few years ago. Blah, 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 blah. Don't get me wrong. I know there are quite a few people with special rights in this country. Like from where I'm sitting, these 1,049 plus federal rights that straight people can get when we marry seem pretty special. They're enough to make me consider tying the knot, that and the possibility that someone else buying me a juicer and some new bathroom towels. But since conservatives seem so willing to ignore the true inequalities in this country, since they've been willing to lie and say a fight for equal rights is a fight for special rights, since they seem poised to accept the inferior, separate but equal solution of civil unions over true marriage equality in this country, then I say, let's give them what they want. Separate and more than equal special civil rights works for me. Here are some ideas for those special separate unions that will make even the most self-deluded homophobe speak up for, nay, demand equal marriage rights for all. This is Mizakan. You have outdone yourself, sir. Mizakan has special protected status in the community forever and ever and ever. He already did, but like this just solidifies it. Mizakan can do whatever the fuck he wants. Mizakan has status. Mizakan has earned his place on the mountaintop of fucking legends. This is amazing. Civil unions should only be for gay and lesbian couples. Sorry, straights would spoil the sanctity and all. All who enter a civil union should be afforded the same legal rights as married couples, all 1,049 plus of them. You know, rights like being able to adopt your partner's children, being able to visit your spouse in the hospital or make medical decisions for him and her in a time of crisis. Yeah, Mizakan dug deep. And being able to cover your health plan, blah, blah, blah. In addition to those 1,049 plus federal rights, separate and more than equal special civil unions, ! Will also come with a lifetime 25% off coupon to the bookstore of your choice, a vacation ranch in Crawford, Texas, a minivan, 2 free video rentals, free healthcare for your family. Oh, that's how, so Carrie wants universal healthcare. Okay. And a special additional tax break, which will entail Fred Phelps being required to pay your taxes once you get civil unionized. Okay. Straight people who want to partake in rights extended to gays and lesbians through these separate and more equal special civil unions will be ridiculed, obviously, for trying to get special rights. And when those straight enablers who fought against marriage equality in the first place finally start petitioning and wailing for equal rights for all, we can tell them to shut up and take their straight agenda somewhere else. Just in case you guys don't know who we're talking about. That is this person, Carrie Smith. Obviously, she's blocked. She's a psychopath. Carrie today is a Zionist, vehemently supporting the classical liberal Zionist assholes of the Babylon Bee and going to war against Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and generally being a giant psychotic pain in the ass all of the time. She's a new Christian. She joined a Christian cult church where she pretends to be a Christian, and she constantly rails and she supports James Lindsay, and she's constantly complaining about how other people aren't as Christian as she is, and that Joel Webbin is not a real Christian. She fucking hates Joel Webbin. Carrie actually stalked Joel Webbin. Carrie actually she lives currently near Joel Webbin's church in Texas. And so Carrie actually went and stalked Joel Webbin. Yeah, that one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She actually went and she stalked this guy. She brought a friend from the Babylon Bee and stalked him. And she just spends days going on. Oh, of course she supports Data Republican. Of course she does. Because she's a lying fucking shill. Same person, guys. Same person. That person wrote this essay. Margaret has graciously allowed me to be a guest blogger while she's traveling today. I would like to use the opportunity to push a platform I believe gays and lesbian and allies should adopt immediately. Special rights for gays and lesbians, separate and more equal works for us. I'll look at that other one too, Mies, again. I feel like we need to move on. But yeah, that's who we're talking about. Anyway, back to the show. Sorry for the brief intermission for people who don't know who she is, but it is very important to us. Back to the show. I apologize. Everyone refocus. Please make sure you mount the like button for me. Guys, we are still 54 channel memberships away from our goal for today. We are about halfway through this presentation. If you appreciate that I'm breaking down this presentation, found this glorious piece of content for us to watch today, I will answer all questions you have in the chat about what the left believes, why they believe it, all that good stuff. If I have taught you something today that you didn't know before, please feel free to gift a channel membership. Help us meet this goal. It would really help me out. My work is 100% funded by you guys, so I can only do this when you allow me to. And let's keep going.
Aesthetics provided me keen insights into the high stakes of thinness and weight stigma for people of color, and especially those of us with marginalized genders and sexualities. While Cho's experiences of queerness, sexuality, race, and racism, and weight stigma on her special were resonant and instructive for me, what proved most impactful was that it was the first discussion of size I encountered that did not reify weight loss as a neutral and holistic solution. In this performance, she speaks to the very severe harm inherent to and potential consequences of the pursuit of weight loss and offers an alternative, an absolute rejection. She ends, I'm the one that I want, by railing against the racist, sexist standards women are presented are pressured into through mainstream media and its acolytes. She says, "It's so wrong that women are asked to live up to this skinny ideal that is totally unattainable. For me to be 10 pounds thinner is a full-time job, and I'm handing in my notice and I'm walking out the door." With this, she points not only to the very real labor of thinness, part of its symbolic value in our contemporary culture, she also offers permission to opt out of what we now call diet culture, particularly for people of color who labor to conform to white supremacist aesthetics of thinness. Her 2002 follow-up special, Notorious CHO, revisits these themes. Echoing the impact of media on fashioning our self-image, she regales a story that the only television she was allowed to watch growing up was beauty pageants, pedagogical experience to learn what women are meant to look like, the way that I first watched Will and Grace to learn how to be gay. The other pedagogical act was her father's attention waxing and waning with her weight loss. This special contains a rejection of adopting the labor of shaming herself.
Cynthia's in with the $5. Thank you, Cynthia. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Guys, again, I'm asking if you can afford to financially support my work, please don't let Cynthia, an old sub, do all the work. Like if everyone in the chat just threw in one channel membership, we would crush the goal. If 25% of the people in the chat just threw in one channel membership, we would crush the goal already. So please, like, I can't do this without you guys. Please don't let old sub and Cynthia carry the burden for everyone. I know they like to do it, and I appreciate them so much. But I want to see, if possible, more diversity of channel membership. I do appreciate everything you guys do, though. Thank you so much.
As she said,
Hans in there. W's Hans. Thank you so much. Guys, Hans has also been super generous today. And so please, like, let's, thank you, Hans. Massive W's to you. We appreciate all your support.
This is all the potentiality that waits on the other side of accepting one's body for its truth. She goes on to call out both the production of bodily insecurities as well as the financial incentive, particularly in, quote, women's and gay men's culture, by asking the audience, when you look in the mirror and think, I'm so fat, I'm so old, I'm so ugly, don't you know that's not your authentic self? But that is billions upon billions of dollars of advertising, magazines, movies, billboards, all geared to make you feel shitty about yourself so that you will take your hard-earned money and spend it at the mall on some turnaround cream that doesn't turn around shit. Here,
I mean, like, the point that I will give the fat activists on, and I'll say this to everyone, obviously, I've lost a ton of weight recently, but I did that for very practical reasons of, like, I need to be able to more easily disguise myself to go undercover. I really want people to know, and I want people to hear, like, even when I weighed 60 pounds more than I weigh now, I never felt bad about myself because of my weight. I never felt bad. I never hated myself because of my weight. And I think that a lot of people, like, they're taught that you shouldn't like yourself or you shouldn't love yourself or you're less valuable because of your weight. I don't want people to think that I buy into that bullshit at all. And quite frankly, like, I think the whole idea of having this oppressive diet culture, like, forced on people, it's such a level of victimization. Like, you should love yourself no matter what. Your weight doesn't fucking matter. You are not more worthy because you have less numbers on the scale than someone else. You are not less worthy because you're a little bit bigger. That's not the way any of this should work. And one of the things that I think, like, made it very, very, very easy for me to lose weight once I made the decision to do so was that I didn't hate myself. I never hated myself because I gained fucking weight. And I knew that I was valuable enough to love myself enough to stop eating sugar and fucking carbs and, like, to be able to actually get the thing that I wanted for the goals that I had. So I just want to say that, like, I think I fucking hate all, like, not to be a leftist about it, but, like, I absolutely fucking hate This is not true. Don't fucking say that you don't know what everyone else needs, okay? You don't know what everyone else needs. I fucking hate how much people are shit on because of their weight. I hated it when it was done to me. It was never helpful. No matter how many pictures they photoshopped of me, it was never helpful to make me want to lose weight. It actually made me want to keep the weight on more than anything else. No matter how many times I was called fat on the internet, which I've been called fat probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times on the internet by so many fucking people. Like, it never made me want to lose weight. It never helped. It was never beneficial in the situation. It actually made the whole fucking problem worse. So, regardless, your weight doesn't fucking matter. Your weight in regards to your value as a human being, and you should know that. And everyone should know that and like internalize that shit. Yo, W's to the Kaok. Thank you for the channel membership. We also got the great Otis in there, single-handedly funding Kino Casino Nights. Do we need to do another Kino Casino Night soon? 20 channel memberships. Thank you so much, bro. Really, really do appreciate it. That's 21 more that we can add. I will say, like, since I've lost weight, I'm finding myself being a little judgmental of people who aren't, though. I will say this. It, like, and maybe it's like a do as I say, not as I do moment. I don't think anyone is less valuable as a human being for not losing weight. Like, do whatever you want. It's your body. It's your life. There are a million reasons why people gain weight. There are a million reasons why people don't lose weight. Everyone's different. Whatever. But I will say, I find it very annoying. I think I talked about this like last week. I find it very annoying that if I'm going and looking for like a generic pair of jeans now, and I'm not saying an excessively small pair of jeans, I'm like either a size 6 or an 8 right now, depending on like what jeans and how they fit and all that bullshit. So if I go to a store and I'm looking for a pair of like size 6 or 8 jeans, which I think should be fucking normally available, what I'm confronted with is a giant stack of jeans that are 14 plus in their sizing and no jeans in the sizes that I actually need. And that is annoying to me. And that, I think, is reflective of the fact that there are many, many, many more customers in the upper ranges than there are in they don't have, I can't find my fucking pants in this store. I can't. I have to get lucky. It's really perturbing. I don't like it. I now have to order all my clothes on the internet because I don't want to go to the store in person because I'm like, they're not even gonna fucking have my size anyway. It's a great kind of like it's not what I expected to happen. So I'm a little judgmental at the moment. These people have impeded my ability to buy pants, okay?
Shines a light on media's role under capitalism, dispersing political and cultural messaging, which produce our bodies as problems to be solved with products to be purchased. Further, she points to the statistically inevitable failure of long-term weight loss efforts and how the pursuit of weight loss for commercial success was actually severely detrimental to her holistic health. This was deeply transformative for me. Cho concludes that show with a monologue about what a lack of self-esteem will rob from minoritarian subjects across race, sexuality, size, and gender. She insists that, quote, for us to have self-esteem is truly an act of revolution, and our revolution is long overdue.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't judge these people I don't want these people to feel bad about themselves because they're fat. I just don't want them to feel entitled to half my airline seat. I don't want them to feel bad about themselves. I want them to love themselves. I want them to love themselves enough to take care of themselves. I just don't want them to feel entitled to like half my airline seat if I happen to be sitting next to them on a plane, because that would fucking suck.
End quote. This politicized refusal of oppression, not just permission, but encouragement to accept myself for who I am and all the multiple intertwining identities I embody, was the earliest formative moment I had as a young adult still figuring out who I was. Through the unsuspecting medium of comedy and stand-up in her own life story, Cho deputized her audience to accept ourselves for who we are and empowered us to move through the world with the confidence of knowing we are deserving of more than we have been offered. Along the way, I encountered other fat queer icons that shaped my identity and politics as well. By 2006, I was freshly out of the closet and eager to live the small town queer moves to the big city dreams that had been promised to me by the media objects I encountered. I was working at Borders Books and Music in Houston, Texas. Shout out to
Borders.
Borders if you remember.
Borders.
And like I
Man.
think most bookstores, we had a lot of queer employees. And my coworkers invited me out into the local queer bar scene and by extension, queer community for the first time. And while we were all queer,
Bro, this is absolutely, I'm sorry to derail a little bit, but it's my stream. I'll do what I want. We chit chat as we're doing this shit. The best part of the weight loss for me is that my back doesn't hurt anymore. And again, that wasn't something I expected. I really thought I had really resigned myself to, I'm getting older. My back fucking hurts all the time. It sucks. Like I had a hard time like doing chores sometimes because I can only do them for short periods because my back would start to hurt so fucking badly. I was like, I gotta sit down. My back is fucking killing me. And since I lost weight, my back pain is almost completely fucking gone. And that honestly for me is like one of the best parts of the whole thing. I'm like, holy shit. Holy shit. Life fucking changing. Congrats to you, bro.
they were also predominantly white, and I was by far the fattest of the group. I began to be
You too,
disillusioned by
Donnie?
experiences
Yeah.
of racism and weight stigma within the queer nightlife spaces I, perhaps naively, had hoped to be welcomed into with open arms. Even more so, I was disillusioned by the lack of recognition from those around me who all wanted our sexualities to be a shared experience that could transcend our otherwise differential experiences of race, class, size, gender, ability, country of origin, and more. It was around this time I discovered The Gossip, a punk band from Portland, Oregon, and their fat white singer named Beth Ditto. I had never seen or possibly
The Gossip from Portland, Oregon. Okay.
considered that there could be a space for fat people in punk, the way I had never seen or considered that there could be space for fat people anywhere. I was immediately taken with The Gossip. Their clear riot girl aesthetic paired powerfully with
Riot
Ditto's
Girl.
vocals made the
Okay, for people who are new, there is a movement within the punk community that is directly related to queer Marxism. So it doesn't surprise me at all this person is bringing up punk as an influence because there is a specific brand of punk. It's called queercore. It started as homocore. It evolved into queercore. Queercore is a very specific, like, militant far left movement within the punk scene where a lot of this gender bullshit got basically cultivated. The idea of like gender abolition and stuff like that, that all came out of the punk scene. That's not to say that everyone who's into punk is a queer. That's not true. There were neo-Nazis in punk as well. Punk was very diversified, but there is a very, very specific segment within the punk scene that is directly related to the development of queer Marxism. Riot Girl was a part of that. What was that band that toured with Green Day? Panic Division? Is that what they were called? That band that toured with Green Day Green Day directly was a part of that. Green Day was one of the bands that forced this shit into the public, honestly. So there's a documentary about that too. You can look up the Queercore documentary. You can find it on YouTube.
And an incredible sonic experience. I really encourage you all to listen to them if you haven't.
Pansy Division. Thank
Lyrics
you.
from
Pansy
It's Evil on
Division.
the
Not Panic Division, Pansy Division. I think I was crossing Panic at the Disco and Pansy Division. No, that's the name of the band, Pansy Division. Thank you, Reagan. I could not fucking remember it.
album Standing in the Way of Control, released in 2005, lent themselves to a fat positive reading specifically. While the first two verses and choruses detailed an unsatisfying romantic relationship, the bridge stuck out to me. Here, Ditta's vocals rose above the music to a near screech as she repeats, "I don't want the world, I only want what I deserve," 3 times over. The exhaustion of asking for what one deserves as a fat person who is often if not always overlooked or denied it, mirrored Cho's call for a revolution of self-esteem that was long overdue. Once again, these lyrics amplified my own social experiences, creating an opportunity for identifications with this cultural figure across lines of race and gender. As I fell more in love with The Gossip, I researched their history and Ditto's specifically. I was inspired by the way she infused punk aesthetics and values into her own resistance of diet culture and weight stigma. I read stories about her forcing herself to throw up on men who harass her on the street or at one of her shows. And the images I found of the band performing, I was enthralled by her fat body, flushed red with vigor and energy of performance. Her size became highly visible in photos of the band performing in basement shows and small
I get some
clubs,
queer
with
glasses
Ditto
on.
forebounding the stage, sometimes wearing just her underwear or in various states of undress.
I need some queer glasses
As
on.
we see here in the tradition of riot girls and female punksters. But Ditto's fat body's visibility landed differently than the nakedness of the thin white women who historically fronted punk bands in the style of the Gossip, as few as there were. Ditto's performance of her own fat body carried queer undertones that aligned with punk subculture's larger resistance to social norms. This is best demonstrated in a headshot of Ditto with her, where her shirt brandishes the words "Punk will never diet." Encountering this photo of Ditto as a young adult allowed me to begin to understand the radical potential of clothing and style and how I might strategically perform my own body as an act of resistance to ongoing experiences of weight stigma. Where diets had been presented as the obvious and only strategy for a body like mine, here they were politicized as conformist and antithetical to punk cultural values. Further, with her big hair, heavy eyeliner, tight and bright dresses and chunky earrings,
My hair used to look
jewelry,
like that, by the way.
Ditto performs what gender studies professor Jillian Hernandez terms aesthetics of excess. While for
Wait.
Hernandez, these aesthetics of excess.
Wait. So I have a theory. So one of the books I'm working on, and this is for people who are relatively new, you might not have heard about this. I'm actually working on a book that is it's about the history and development of queer Marxism as a political ideology. And one of the arguments that I'm making in my book is a lot of people think that queer Marxism trickled down from the universities, from these crazy academics like Foucault and Judith Butler and like all of that stuff. And there's a whole like laundry list of those people that we can identify. And that is true. Queer Marxism was cultivated in the universities. However, my premise is that we actually need to go one step before that, because where did these professors get their ideas in the first place? My premise is that every major queer scholar that was in the universities can be traced back before their time as a queer scholar to being involved in these cultural movements, in the punk scene, in these underground sex scenes, in BDSM clubs, in fetish environments, in stuff like that. I think that they were all involved in these underground far left subcultures first, then they became academics, then they wrote books and papers that were highly inspired by their time in these subcultures. So it didn't start in the universities, it started in the subcultures, and then it made its way into the university via people who are always part of those subcultures, and then it trickled down through the universities into the broader cultural model. That is my premise, and that is my argument. I think I've actually made a pretty good argument for it in the book. And it's like, it makes total sense because and people might think that this is pedantic, but it's like we need to know where these ideologies come from. These ideologies were not just developed in a vacuum in the university. They were actually developed in dingy underground fucking sex clubs. Yup, people like Gail Rubin. Gail Rubin was heavily involved in the leather and bondage scene in San Francisco as well. Yup. And it's just like, that's where this came from. This ideology came from like dingy fucking underground sex clubs. It came from the punk community where they were all fucking around with gender to make a political statement. That's literally where this bubbled up from. And people don't realize that all of these academics that later got these cushy professor jobs and they wrote all these books and all these papers and presented at all these conferences, they were in these seedy underground cultures. Anyway, that's part of what I'm working on. Well, yeah. I mean, BDSM is an integral part of queer Marxism because if you think about, they talk about queer Marxism or they talk about BDSM all the time. BDSM is about consensual power dynamics using sex. Basically, what queer Marxists believe is they are non consensually oppressed by capitalism. But if they're engaging in BDSM, BDSM is a consensual subjugation. You are consenting to be subjugated. You are consenting to power dynamics. You are taking yourself out of control consensually. It's performing the oppressive nature of capitalism in a way that they can all agree upon. So BDSM is huge in the queer Marxist community. They talk about leather stuff all the time. We've seen queer Marxist bootlicking workshops. We've seen queer Marxist like rope workshops. We've seen all of this hardcore shit show up. Oh, we once watched a presentation about like even like a dominatrix injecting things into one of their clients or so. Does anyone remember that presentation? That was fuck off weird. That was at CUNY. That was at the City University of New York. So yeah, it's directly related.
And chunky earrings and jewelry. Ditto performs what gender studies professor Juliana Hernandez terms aesthetics of excess. While for Hernandez, these aesthetics of excess are highly racialized, they are also about, quote, embracing abundance where political order would impose austerity, end quote. And while Ditto was a white woman who grew up in Arkansas, Hernandez's analysis of excess translate onto both Ditto's fat body as well as her queer femininity. Fatphobic tropes rooted in anti-Black conceptions of sensual indulgence exceed the immediate population. Fatness on white women signals both an abject racial performance, a failure of whiteness, which aesthetically situates them in proximity to Black and Indigenous women.
Oh my God. No, I wouldn't make that. I wouldn't make that leap. It's not like that at all. Did they just say that when white women are fat, they are essentially Black? I'm pretty sure they just said that when white women are fat. Guys, did you know I was Black? Did you know I was Black for like years? I had no idea. Listen.
Austerity, end quote. And while Ditto was a white woman who grew up in Arkansas, Hernandez's analysis of excess translate onto both Ditto's fat body as well as her queer femininity. Fatphobic tropes rooted in anti-Black conceptions of sensual indulgence exceed the immediate population. Fatness on white women signals both an abject racial performance, a failure of whiteness, which aesthetically
Fatness in white women is a failure of whiteness.
Situates them in proximity to Black and Indigenous women.
Which aesthetically situates them in proximity to Black and Indigenous people. I need to make a clip of this real quick. I need to send this to Amalek. This is like an emergency.
And would impose austerity, end quote. And while Ditto was a white woman who grew up in Arkansas, Hernandez's analysis of embracing abundance where political order would impose austerity, end quote. And while Ditto was a white woman who grew up in Arkansas, Hernandez's analysis of excess translate onto both Ditto's fat body as well as her queer femininity. Fatphobic tropes rooted in anti-Black conceptions of sensual indulgence exceed the immediate population. Fatness on white women signals both an abject racial performance, a failure of whiteness, which aesthetically situates them in proximity to Black and Indigenous women. Further, as Juana Maria Rodriguez notes, aesthetics of excess can also, define queer femininity.
Okay, I got the clip. Hang on. I'm going to send that to Amalek later. He's going to be real happy about that.
Queer femmes who, quote, make gender a spectacle of deliberate design, end quote. A queer feminist like Ditto's engages traditional norms of femininity in excess of heterosexual norms and towards queer and feminist ends. When engaged on fat people, aesthetics of excess collide with what I term fat aesthetics. And a survey of fat queer cultural icons of the era would not be complete without a discussion of divine. Now, as a young queer
Divine!
unaffiliated with higher education institutions, I actively sought out queer aesthetic artifacts to immerse myself in queer culture and history. Part of this self-education came through the work of queer cult classic film director John Waters, who had already been partially exposed to growing up. While I loved Fat, Teen Pregnant, Ricky Lake, and Crybaby when I
Hey, old sub, thank you so much for the super chat. Is it just me or are these people overtly racist? Okay, remember, old sub, they're not talking about race, old sub. They're talking about class. And I know that this is complicated. I really do get it. When they're saying white women are black, they're not talking about skin color. Of course, white women are not black and black women are not white. That's just like provably wrong. What they are saying is they are aligning, they are part of the proletariat. Black means proletariat, white means capitalist oppressor. When a woman rejects the capitalist beauty standards and is fat, they are black. They are part of the oppressed class. They are aligning themselves with the oppressed class. That's actually what they're saying. They're not talking about skin color. And again, I know it's hard to code switch sometimes because it does seem like they're talking about skin color, but you have to like read beyond it. And you always have to understand whiteness means capitalism. Whiteness means the system of capitalism that is oppressing everyone in every single instance with extremely, extremely rare exception. Okay. So are they racist? Do they hate white people? Do they hate black people? Do they hate any people? No, they really don't. It's not something they talk about. They don't treat people any differently based on their skin color. But I think sometimes the things they say are kind of funny. But like, you have to understand, they don't mean them in terms of like believing that one group of people is superior to another group. That's not what's going on. And we just need to be like intellectually honest about that. We can joke, like we know enough about this to know that we can joke. But like at the end of the day, they're talking about the oppressed class. They're not talking about actually being black.
I saw as a young person, it wasn't until I revisited Hairspray that I truly fell in love with Tracy Turnblad, the fat white anti-racist
Hairspray's a great
activist
movie.
who falls in love with and gets the guy in the end. The drag queen Divine, née Harris Glenn Milstead, co-starred as Edna Turnblad, Tracy's fat mother, whose diet pills hoped to counteract the mild agoraphobia she had developed along with her fat body. In a 1990 conversation titled Divinity, Michael Moon and Eve Kosofsky Sedgwick ruminate on the convergence of fat and queer identitarian activism in Divine, defining divinity as, quote, a combination of objection and defiance that the drag queen embodies. Divinity is perhaps most acutely demonstrated in 1972's cult classic Pink Flamingos. The film follows Divine's character, Babs Johnson, as
if watching this is making you dumber, you're not smart enough to be on my channel. Pro tip. This is about learning. If you're not learning anything, if you haven't learned anything in this presentation, you might not be smart enough to be on my channel.
she lives her daily life as the self-proclaimed filthiest woman alive. Famously, the film ends with Divine chasing a dog to eat its freshly excreted shit. But this is not what sticks out to me. Rather, it is Divine's also infamous speech that precedes her literal shit eating. While being interviewed by a news reporter on her status being challenged, Babs delivers a monologue: kill everyone now, condone first-degree murder, advocate cannibalism, eat shit. Filth is my politics, filth is my life. And a hyperbolic statement.
Oh! That's where that's from. That's where that quote is from. Hang on a second. Yeah, we've heard that quote before. Where have we heard that quote before? Where have we heard that quote before? No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was where it was from. This isn't towards the queerest insurrection. It's the last thing it says. This is the last part of towards the queerest insurrection. Let's get decadent. Filth is our politics. Filth is our life. That's crazy. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was where that fucking quote was from. That was from Divine? Wow.
Bad rewrite scripts that presume fat embodiment as one of disempowerment. However, like most of John Waters' filmography,
For people who don't know, Toward the Queerest Insurrection it's like the modern day queer Marxism manifesto. Every queer activist has read and has been inspired by Toward the Queerest Insurrection. If you're going to understand queer Marxism, you have got to read and understand Towards the Queerest Insurrection. I have many videos reading it and breaking it down if you want more information.
most of the cast of the film is white, which makes Johnson's declaration to kill everyone troubling from a different vantage point. While Johnson's haste call to kill everyone, presumably all those with power over her or who are enacted against her, feels rousing and provocative at first glance, or at least it does to me. Upon closer inspection, it becomes troubling. As a character, Johnson is a fat working class woman, certainly oppressed. However, she continues to hold power over others, most particularly as white and a settler herself. Rather than taking the words of her character literally, I read the complicated subversion against weight stigma that opens up new possibilities in line with larger politics of fat liberation. The fat queer identity I had developed under the influence of these actors and many, many others culminated in my pursuit of a scholarly career investigating media and cultural production of fat queer artists of color. One experience of my first semester of graduate school offered me new awareness around how fat and queer identities inform one another. One evening, I'm out with friends, hair drenched in sweat, face flushed, a drink in one hand and the other in the air, with my flushed full body behind me dancing, vibrating, and jiggling to the music.
Wow.
We are at a monthly queer dance party in downtown Oakland called Hella Gay, hosted at a bar that normally caters to the general hetero public. One night a month, it becomes flooded with queers, the dance floor packed so tightly at times that we are no longer individual bodies dancing. Rather, we become one intertwined mass moving in motion. It can be one of those spaces, you know the ones I'm talking about, that feels as if we have finally answered Emma Goldman's call, wherein dance and revolution become the same, or perhaps the rally before final transcendental action. Surely at last call we will take to the streets, and tomorrow the world will wake up anew. This particular night, there was a concert at the venue across the street, and the dance floor was consequentially peppered with the surplus concert goers who mistook our rebellion for their after party. Although this party, like most queer spaces I have been in, was dominated by thin bodies, there were a handful of other fat partygoers. But as I looked around, I was struck by what felt like a clear distinction between the fat partygoers who had come for Hella Gay and those who had merely wandered over from the concert across the street. In short, our divinity, reflected in all the fat queers around me, in our cut-off short shorts, fishnets, crop tops, brightly colored and patterned clothes, dyed hair and elaborate haircuts, purses and bags in the shape of donuts and other fatty foods, clothing that showed off stretch marks, fatty upper arms, luscious cellulite-adorned thighs, rolls of beautiful and tender
luscious cellulite-adorned thighs. Okay.
Fat on our bellies, sides, and backs.
Okay.
Whereas sitcoms I grew up on, such as Friends and Will and Grace, regularly deployed fat aesthetics as an object of ridicule and objection, people like Margaret Cho, Beth Ditto, and Divine embraced them as forms of empowerment. In the context of a queer club, our fat aesthetics felt juxtaposed against the bodies of fat partygoers who had come from the concert, adorned in clothing that heteronormative communities have historically been more effectively disciplined into wearing. Long and loose garments that hid their bodies, hair pulled back or styled blandly, shirts with a 3/4 sleeve so as not to show off the fat upper arms, shapeless and oversized ensembles in modest colors and busy patterns meant to minimize and distract, zipped up hoodies even inside the sweltering hot club. Some of you might be familiar with those memories yourself. They weren't wearing anything mesh, sheer, shiny, ripped, cut, torn, accessorized, bold, boldly bright, tight, or anything else that fat aesthetics celebrate. Visually, it was abundantly clear who among us was performing divinity, this combination of objection and defiance, and who was not. In other words, the fat queers around me were enacting Kathleen Nabesco's analysis that, quote, queer theory encourages us to play with ourselves and make a joyful noise in the doing. For me, it is not the queer theory I would come to read in books and essays throughout my formal education, but the queer theory I encountered in quotidian life through comedians, musicians, and visual cultures such as film, television, and clothing. As I danced, lost in the heat of other queer partygoers, and starting my own journey into graduate school, I wondered about the fat queer icons that had helped my fellow partygoers. Was Margaret Cho's rejection of norms buried deep in their psyche too? Did Beth Ditto also inspire the confidence to step outside in a sleeveless shirt again and again? The embracement of not just our bodies, but also the foods to have imagined or produced them as joyful and pleasurable is a divine intervention. Even more so for those of us who are people of color, whose fat, racialized bodies queer settler aesthetics of beauty and inclusion. It is this divinity I have come to understand that allowed me to transcend the possibilities of fat bodies that had been offered and encouraged me to incorporate my body and its intimidating and discomforting size into a fat aesthetic that challenges dominant notions of normativity, shame, modesty, respectability.
A fat aesthetic that challenges dominant notions of normativity. That means the dominant cultural norms that uphold capitalism. So they're saying our fat aesthetic is challenging to the capitalist imposed beauty standards by X, Y, B, and Z. Listen.
Body and its intimidating and discomforting size into a fat aesthetic that challenges dominant notions of normativity, shame, modesty, respectability, health, and the whiteness that shapes all of these concepts.
Capitalism.
And this divinity, underscored by a queer politic that resists oppressive norms, is much, much more than merely aesthetics. Clothing that makes a fat body fatter or simply unashamed, that breaks gendered and sexual norms, that signals queerness, and so on, comes with its own risks. And sometimes we risk it. Sometimes we make our own possibilities. Emboldened by our fat aesthetics, fat queers have the freedom to play, resist, and fuck with colonial, race, classed, and gendered norms that tell us to shrink, to be small, to be quiet, to not draw attention to ourselves. Each time our bodies spill out of rips and tears, under crop tops, tight clothing stretched desperately across the expanse of our bellies or thighs, caught in between our rolls, or we style our cellulite as accessory, we perform ruptures to the racial and gender conventions of what we can and should be and do.
We perform ruptures to the racial and gender conventions of what we can and should be and do. I gotta clip this, guys. I gotta clip this. Okay, hang on. I have to just clip this. This is fucking... Oh my word.
Did Beth Ditto also inspire the confidence to step outside in a sleeveless shirt again and again? The embracement of not just our bodies, but also the foods to have imagined or produced them as joyful and pleasurable is a divine intervention. Even more so for those of us who are people of color, whose fat, racialized bodies queer settler aesthetics of beauty and inclusion. It is this divinity I have come to understand that allowed me to transcend the possibilities of fat bodies that had been offered and encouraged me to incorporate my body and its intimidating and discomforting size into a fat aesthetic that challenges dominant notions of normativity, shame, modesty, respectability, health, and the whiteness that shapes all of these concepts. And this divinity, underscored by a queer politic that resists oppressive norms, is much, much more than merely aesthetics. Clothing that makes a fat body fatter or simply unashamed, that breaks gendered and sexual norms, that signals queerness, and so on, comes with its own risks. And sometimes we risk it. Sometimes we make our own possibilities. Emboldened by our fat aesthetics, fat queers have the freedom to play, resist, and fuck with colonial, race, classed, and gendered norms that tell us to shrink, to be small, to be quiet, to not draw attention to ourselves. Each time our bodies spill out of rips and tears, under crop tops, tight clothing stretched desperately across the expanse of our bellies or thighs, caught in between our rolls, or we style our cellulite as accessory, we perform ruptures to the racial and gender conventions of what we can and should be and do. Queerness calls us to brandish our boldness on our bodies. It hails us to an embodied resistance to beauty aesthetics that rely on whiteness, light skin, thinness, muscularity, masculinity, able-bodiedness, and absence of scars and blemishes, the right amount of body hair, and so on. Queerness says, fuck that, and while we're at it, fuck you. Fatness reminds us that we don't exist for you, and neither do these bodies. Fat queerness says we're disturbing you because you need to be disturbed.
Okay.
Queerness resists heteronormative structures, producing alternative potentialities that extend to bodies and to aesthetics.
It kind of just kept going there, but I think it's actually a really good place to end the clip. Guys, remember how I told you at the beginning of the presentation that to queer one's look, to queer the aesthetic means to go against capitalist beauty standards? That's what this person just said. To be queer is to go against all of these normative beauty standards that uphold the normative system for reason X, Y, B, and Z. Does everyone understand this? This person literally just said to be queer, to queer our aesthetics, when we are wearing clothes they don't want us to wear, when we are letting all of our fat just hang out, when we are deliberately pushing back against diet culture, when we are saying, fuck you, we're going to wear what we want, we are pushing back on the cultural norms that uphold the oppressive system. 1 in the chat if you understand, 2 in the chat if that's confusing. Did everyone hear it? They look weird because it's a political statement. They are deliberately making themselves look fat. They're deliberately wearing ugly fucking clothes. They're deliberately doing everything the wrong way because they believe that in doing so, they are pushing back on the cultural norms that are upholding our entire society. Listen again, just for shits and giggles.
And sexual norms that signals queerness and so on comes with its own risks. And sometimes we risk it. Sometimes we make our own possibilities. Emboldened by our fat aesthetics, fat queers have the freedom to play, resist, and fuck with colonial race, class, and gendered norms that tell us to shrink, to be small, to be quiet, to not draw attention to ourselves. Each time our bodies spill out of rips and tears, under crop tops, tight clothing stretched desperately across the expanse of our bellies or thighs, caught in between our rolls, or we style our cellulite as accessory.
I particularly enjoy the line about styling your cellulite as an accessory.
We perform ruptures to the racial and gender conventions of what we can and should be and do. Queerness calls us to brandish our boldness on our bodies. It hails us to an embodied resistance to beauty aesthetics that rely on whiteness, light skin, thinness, muscularity, masculinity, able-bodiedness, and absence of scars and blemishes, the right amount of body hair, and so on. Queerness says, fuck that, and while we're at it, fuck you.
Fuck you!
Fatness reminds us that we don't exist for you, and neither do these bodies. Fat queerness says we're disturbing you because you need to be disturbed. Queerness resists heteronormative structures, producing alternative potentialities that extend to bodies and to aesthetics. Fat queers perform fat aesthetics as an extension of a fat queer politic that resists dominant modes of sexual disciplining in response to weight stigma. But we did not arrive here on our own, nor did we arrive fully formed. What I'm trying to make clear here is that the kind of fat queer identity formation I'm describing was built over years and decades of inspiration from fat queer artists of a variety of forms. While no single artist or piece can take full credit, instead these performances are piecemeal together, even from artists with different racial or gender identity from myself, even if their politics were imperfect or otherwise illegible. While in each of these cases, I undoubtedly saw parts of myself reflected that I had not yet before, that affirmation alone was not enough. This is more than a simple argument of representation. This is to say that representation is not enough and arguably is actually dangerous without an informed politic. Instead, I'm arguing that we must use representation as touchstones to not simply see ourselves, but to understand one another. We must aspire to understand one another such that we can be accomplices in liberation together. For me, this has allowed a complex and coalitional analysis for fat queer identity that was innately feminist and anti-racist. What I'm getting at is fat activists, academics, liberationists, and our accomplices need to think expansively.
No. They're not saying that poverty causes obesity. They're saying that capitalism has forced unrealistic beauty standards on society, and that has made people who are fat and go against the capitalist beauty standards oppressed in our society. They're not saying poverty creates obesity, though.
About fat embodiment and weight stigma, not as a singularly defined or experience. This is not only because fat people exist across the spectrum of both privileged and oppressed embodiments, rather it is because fat embodiment is merely one way bodily oppression and stigma has been developed and deployed in our contemporary moment under colonization and anti-Blackness. Like with Divine's kill everyone now speech, when we privilege fat embodiment in our activism, which is truly certainly necessary at times, we can risk not only forgetting other axes of oppression, but actually perpetuating harm across different lines instead. We see this in tropes of the good fatty that insist that we can all access oppressive constructions of healthy biometric markers despite our fat bodies. As a fat person who is also queer, non-binary, a non-Black person of color, neurodivergent, and has a mobility disability, I've taken care to consider not just the overlaps with the fat figures I have mentioned here, but our differences as well. Coming into my disability identity has also helped me divest from health. As someone with congenital cognitive disabilities, I understand that I never would have been considered healthy by dominant notions, no matter what size body I ended up in. And disability justice teaches us that health is not a prerequisite for humanity, love, respect, or anything else that has come to function as a shorthand for it. This means that we need to not only be students of fat liberation, but other liberation movements as well. For example, I've written elsewhere about Lizzo as a figurehead of the so-called body positive movement.
I told you guys we were going to see porn. I fucking told you. See how they fucking sneak it right in? Everything's fine. And then you have fucking Lizzo naked out of fucking nowhere.
Which is twofold.
God damn it.
On the one hand, Lizzo's presence and performance of her body undoubtedly and intentionally reflects confidence and sexiness back to other fat people, as well as non-fat people that we do not see in most other facets of society. This can and does in turn offer fat people confidence and affirmation in our bodies in the ways I have outlined Margaret Cho, Beth Ditto, and Divine did for me. This is especially true for those who are in early stages of fat identitarian development, as opposed to a descriptive fat experience, no matter their age. At the same time, my critique of deifying Lizzo in this way is that it can allow fat people who have not also experienced Black womanhood to erase how Black womanhood informs Lizzo's identity, performance, and our politics. We saw the dangers of these easy identifications too in the recent controversy.
It's just such a fucking shame because legitimately, Lizzo is a very fucking talented flute player. Which is a weird fucking random thing, but like, she actually is a very fucking talented flute player. And it's like, this is what we have to know Lizzo for, is being fucking naked and fat and all that bullshit. Why can't she just be a fucking great fucking flute player? Like, that's a really fucking unique thing.
Alleging Lizzo as an abusive boss who created a hostile work environment. While many non-Black fat people and even more non-Black, non-fat people took this opportunity to distance themselves from Lizzo, others used it to express their own disappointing experiences with her, and many more expressed their long-held disdain for the singer, undoubtedly due to her status not just as a fat woman, but as a fat Black woman who has demanded more for herself.
Listen, the flute is a hard fucking instrument. Don't shit on flute players. Like, the flute is a hard fucking instrument to learn. You show respect, okay?
Or in Ditto's words, what she deserves. This is not to excuse any wrongdoing done by Lizzo or claim that wealthy and famous fat Black women cannot do harm. Rather, it is to ask ourselves how our misogynoir and fat phobia is shaping our reception to this news, including larger politics around who is deemed worthy of accountability, forgiveness, or disposability. It is to say, if someone who is so protected from
Yeah,
abuse and
loudest
harm
lives
by
matter.
wealth and fame can experience this kind of backlash and abandonment, what is happening to the many, many more fat Black women who are not?
I wonder how the fat activists feel about Lizzo losing weight. I wonder if there's like an update to this presentation somewhere where we say, I'm sorry, excuse me, didn't Lizzo lose like, 100 some odd pounds?
When fat people who have not also experienced Black womanhood over-identify with Lizzo, we risk evading our responsibility to not just Lizzo, but Black women of all sizes,
Lizzo
which is
white now,
arguably
yeah.
a queer politic in itself. Following the Combahee River Collective, a group of Black feminists
Combahee
writing in the
River
early
Collective!
1970s, centering Black women and our struggles as the nexus of racist, patriarchal, and capitalist exploitation will
Oh,
necessarily liberate all of us. This is where what I am articulating as an anti-racist fat queer politic must begin. I build on this with what
wait. So this is where an anti-racist fat queer politic must begin. A group of Black feminists writing in the early 70s, they argue centering Black women in our struggles as a nexus of racist, patriarchal, and capitalist exploitation will
Cohen
liberate
defines as
all of us.
risk evading our responsibility to not just Lizzo, but Black women of all sizes, which is arguably a queer politic in itself. Following the Combahee River Collective, a group of Black feminists writing in the early 1970s, centering Black women and our struggles as the nexus of racist, patriarchal, and capitalist exploitation will necessarily liberate all of us. This is where what I am articulating as an anti-racist fat queer politic must begin.
Apparently
I build
so.
on this with what
but let me explain why. Black is not about skin color. Black indicates the oppressed class. Fat is the oppressed class because it goes against capitalist beauty standards. So fat means Black. Thin means white. White in this case does not mean skin color either. It means the oppressor class, the class that has the power, the class that, in this case specifically, because this is queer Marxism, in queer Marxism, when they say white, they mean things that uphold cultural normativity or the norms that uphold the capitalist system. And when they say Black, they mean things that are oppressed under cultural normativity, things that are anti-assimilationist, things that go against the capitalist system. So yes, in order to be Black, you must be fat because that's how you're part of the oppressed category. Hope that makes sense. W's in the chat for Old Sub Sailor, getting us up to 85 donated channel memberships. Guys, we're getting close to ending this. Well, actually, we have about 10 more minutes, maybe even 20 more minutes. Can we get 15 more channel memberships as we round out this presentation? I would really appreciate it. Let's hit that channel membership goal. If I've taught you something new, if I've made you laugh, if I've made you cry, if I've made you think, please feel free to donate a channel membership to show your appreciation. Not only helps out me, helps out the community. I'm independently funded by people like you. I cannot do this unless you guys allow me to. So if we get 15 more channel memberships before the end of the stream, that would be rad. Hey, Sparkle, thanks so much for the channel membership. W's in the chat for Sparkle. Appreciate that. Yeah, Old Sub should change his name to Old Dub. That would be a good one, Glow in the Dark. I appreciate that. Yo, we got Cynthia, and of course, the queen, the goddess, the legend, W Cynthia. Really appreciate that. We now need 9 more, guys. 9 more to meet the goal. You guys rock. Thank you.
As queer politics, Cohen argues that queer politics and queer political identity can and should be extended to considerations of race. She considers queerness and queer politics to not wholly be a manner of sex practices, but a proximity from cultural norms that are raced and by extensions classed. Following this, then, we can begin to think of an anti-racist fat queer politic, which assumes anti-racism as an innate part and as innate to queer political identity. This is also an understanding of queer
anti-racism as an innate to queer identity, because anti-racism means anti-capitalism. There is literally a book. Hang on, I'll show it to you. What is anti-racism and why it means anti-capitalism? There is literally a book of this title, okay? You might say, Karlyn, are you sure that anti-racism means anti-capitalism? Well, there is literally a book called what is anti-racism and why it means anti-capitalism. Veriso, who is the publisher of this book, is a far-left socialist book publisher. So am I sure that when they say anti-racism, they actually mean anti-capitalism? Yes. Yes, I'm positive. Do you know how I know? They literally wrote a book titled, What is Anti-Racism and Why It Means Anti-Capitalism, okay? I could not, they could not be more clear. They could not be more clear. What was the other good reference? What did I miss? Do I need to go back? Oh, the punk one. Punks, ball daggers, and welfare queens, the radical potential of queer politics. Oh, yeah. I totally got that. Argues queerness and queer politics to not wholly be a manner of sex practices, but proximity to cultural norms that are raced and extension classed. Class, of course, is a reference to capitalism. I got it, Reagan. Don't doubt. Don't doubt. I saw it. I just didn't comment on it, okay?
As queer politics, Cohen argues that queer politics and queer political identity can and should be extended to considerations of race. She considers queerness and queer politics to not wholly be a manner of sex practices, but a proximity from cultural norms that are raced and by extensions classed. Following this, then, we can begin to think of an anti-racist fat queer politic, which assumes anti-racism as an innate part and as innate to queer political identity. This is also an understanding of queerness that is not about sex practices or gender identity, but a political and intentional choice to actively perform against oppressive norms of race, class, gender, settlement, and empire, and construct a world anew through our relational practices.
Communism.
Sexuality included, of course, but also beyond sex, and with a critical understanding of how and why we deploy our sexuality and with whom.
Well, Jennifer and I are going to be doing Disenrage at 9 p.m. tonight, so in about 40 minutes. So I think we are actually planning to talk about UFOs tonight. Jennifer has some Stephen Greer video, and Stephen Greer is all about aliens and UFOs. It's called The Lost Century to Reclaim or something. Jennifer said it was good. But yeah, I think we are going to be doing a show about aliens tonight. I don't know if it's about that specifically, but I think that's on the docket.
Further, it assumes an understanding of fat phobia as part of the project of white supremacy.
I like Stephen Greer
in an effort to objectify specifically Black and Indigenous bodies. Following this understanding is about thinking fat and thin embodiments as markers of proximities to norms and power. It folds into the part of the work of unlearning racism. It is also unlearning cleverly hidden racialized norms and understandings of bodies and desire, of what constitutes a desirable or desired body, not just racially, but in terms of size, shape, gender performance, health status, and so on. All of these ideals and norms are formed through and with white supremacists.
Yeah, one of you can get us to the goal right now. Who wants to get us to the channel membership goal? One of you is going to be a hero. You could donate 5 channel memberships right now and blow us past that goal. Who's going to be the hero? Let's see. And again, listen, I know that Old Sub wants to be the hero. I know that Cynthia wants to be the hero. Can it please be someone that is not Old Sub or Cynthia or Hans? Can it please be, or Great Otis? Great Otis gave a bunch of channel memberships today. Can it please be someone new? I would love for it to be someone new. We got Sheikah Lago in there with a gifted channel membership, dubbed Sheikah Lago. Guys, we need 2 more. Someone's going to be a hero. Someone's going to be a hero for the entire stream, and we're all going to celebrate you. I know you can do it, guys. Yo, Frank! Frank does it! Frank! W! We also have Red Menace in there with a W. We also do want to acknowledge our Red Menace Guru. We love you, bro. Thank you, W, for the channel membership. Frank, you were the hero we needed for today. We appreciate you, Frank. Thank you, Frank, for getting us across that finish line. Thank you for taking a little bit of the burden off of the back of some people who just donate so religiously. Not that I don't love you guys, and you know that, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's finish up.
Imaginings. And these parallels have old roots in our collective struggle. The roots of the fat liberation movement date back to at least 1973, when Judy Free Spirit and Aldebaran published the Fat Liberation Manifesto.
Come through
the document of 7 points, which outlines the movement's frameworks and demands. The 3rd point reads, "We see our struggle as allied with the struggle of other oppressed groups against classism, racism, sexism, ageism, financial exploitation, imperialism, and the like. The inspiration from liberation movements of the 1960s, Black, gay, and women's, does not feel lost on me, nor does the reality that people were among the ranks of all of these movements, and more. Fat liberation has always necessarily been queer, and it has always been intersectional. It has also always identified
Fat liberation has always been queer, and it has always been intersectional.
the medical industrial complex as a barrier to the overall health and longevity of fat people. So an anti-racist fat queer politic can think fat and thin embodiments outside of power structures instead of aesthetic and moral markers of health and beauty. We can think of both fat and thinness as neutral yet inevitable byproducts of natural biodiversity. These are the kinds of media readings that I'm interested in developing, spaces where the most marginalized are centered and can productively respond to histories of anti-Blackness, weight stigma, and a general social construction built upon categorizing various embodiments and placing them into hierarchies. One does not have to be fat positive. One does not have to be Black or Native to be invested in and laboring toward Black liberation and Indigenous sovereignty. These movements are the work of all of us, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all in this struggle. To close, I'd like to share with you all some of my own fat queer media production from my book, Revenge Body. This is the poem that I think is most representative of the themes of the book. I wrote it after my first year of graduate school when I got very sick. And this is an experience that I think is common for many of us who push our bodies to the limits to meet the demands of capitalism. My particular experience here was informed by not having insurance for 5 years before entering graduate school and being unable to make much use of the insurance I had before with the minimum wage job I received, or with the minimum wage I received from my service industry job at Borders. I think the rest of the book, it attempts to complicate narratives of size as the only relevant marker of health. It's called I Wear Black on the Outside because the medical industrial complex told me I'm already dead on the inside.
I wear black on the outside because by being fat, they are Black.
Stop my screen sharing here. I'm going to read this one poem. Again, it's called I Wear Black on the Outside because the medical industrial complex told me I'm already dead on the inside. My oral surgeon is a very gentle top, tells me, you're doing great, and I know I'm a good boy, at least so I've heard.
Blackness max.
6 teeth plucked from my skull like a goddamn daisy. He loves me not. He loves me not. He loves me not. I remember my mother's teeth falling out at the dinner table too. So much of this body is my family's. I got her teeth and her temper. Once I asked a friend if I'm difficult to love like her too. I think back to this through the laughing gas, me on my back like always. When I get home, I text Jules, how much weight do you think I lost? My goal weight is no internal organs. My goal weight is healthy infant. My goal weight is Posh Spice and an LBD. My goal weight is Callista Flockhart, Fiona Apple. My goal weight is a skull full of teeth. My goal is to not wait for a world where no one has a goal weight. I'm surrounded by moneyed people who lament capitalism is killing the poor by making us fat, while ignoring how capitalism severed us from our bodies with premiums and co-pays, or how my teeth are rotting.
Capitalism severed us from our bodies because it made us buy health insurance.
I school from the inside out, and I had to let them because I couldn't afford it. And which is the bigger health risk? Being poor or being fat? 6 teeth later, and you only have 32 to begin with. So how do you like my new body? Fad diet, weight loss surgery, quick fix, The Biggest Loser, New Year, New Me, my after pick, summer body, beach body, revenge body, avenge my body. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caleb. I apologize for my timing there.
It's totally okay.
Beautiful.
Very
Beautiful.
touching, comrade.
Shavis, you wrote something in. Do you want to just go ahead and bring that up?
I wonder
Maybe
what
you're
this
not
person
able
looked
to
like
read
as
it
a woman.
out loud because I'm the moderator. So Caleb says, as someone who was, this is from Shavis, as someone who was very much involved in the punk and queer movements and spent many, many nights in queer clubs during my younger years, I so could relate to much of this and learned as well. I appreciate hearing about racism, colonialism, etc. intersects with anti-fat bias. As a white woman, I need to continue hearing it and continue to take it in. Unfortunately, in the 80s, there were so few fat folks who were there for me to look to. And while there were many BIPOC members of my friend groups, I did not have the understanding of the norms they were experiencing. Miss Divine was really the first exposure I had. I will never forget the first time I saw her in a film. I've seen every single one. Thank you so much for this. It gave some validation to all the feelings I had as a fat 20-something dancing in queer clubs and the possibility of radical change that I did not know what to do with.
My gosh. Thank you, Shavis. I love that. That was beautiful, and I'm so glad to hear that. And
everybody's just saying thank you so much. Kathleen says thank you much. Monica Peralta says so much. Thank you so much. Shavis says this is so beautiful.
thank you, everyone. I know it was a lot to take in, and I'm sure that
there's another question that just came in. It says, thank you so from Michaela Diaz Sanchez. Thank you so much for your work, Dr. Luna. How does your work inform your teachings, pedagogical methodology? Sorry, I can't pronounce that very well.
That's okay. Thank you for reading the question. Thank you for that question. And hi, Michaela. It's interesting, when I started teaching fat studies, I was surprised at how many non-fat students I had. And so I would always ask them, like, why are you here? What are you do? Like, what is your interest in this topic? And I was interested to learn that, a lot of them were coming with their own experiences of, body image issues, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, so on and so forth, but also, so that very much relates directly to fatness, but they were also coming with, just other issues around their bodies, other insecurities, again, that I think capitalism and culture encourages in us, from acne to, I've had students talk about being dark skinned and having family members encourage them or mandate that they use skin lightening creams. So it actually opens up this whole host of issues for students to think about their bodies, again, not just their size, not just their race, their gender and sexuality, but the ways that they've been produced and cultivated in this culture, and how do we think with fatness, but also beyond fatness, to think about how do we get free together. So it's been interesting to see how much this conversation opens up for students in terms of coalition, solidarity, and empathy, which is ultimately my larger goal.
There was another question from Andrea Ciarelli that said, thank you so much. Is it possible to take your courses if we are not local to California or enrolled at the university?
Thank you. I don't think so at the moment. However, I do have on my website, there is a link to my teaching, and I have some syllabuses there, some syllabi that I've taught in the past. So that's one way to access my work. You can also find a lot of the readings just by Googling them or purchasing some of the books that the readings are required of. But excuse me, I think a lot of the readings should be available online somewhere. Oh, thank you for that.
I wanted to mention that you have a website. Stephanie put through Dr. Luna's website, and also connecting to Caleb, Dr. Luna, and Twitter and IG. Or scroll up on the chat and you'll see the IG and the Twitter, and then you will also see the link. And then also a link to the UCSB academia. I think, Stephanie, you can also send that out to the participants as well, all those links to Dr. Luna's work, perhaps, to the members, the people who participated today. I just keep learning, and sometimes it makes me cringe to know that I made so many mistakes along the way, but I guess I just have to keep learning. But I do have a lot of cringeworthy experiences as a clinician in the field. Even when I was getting my talk ready for later today, I looked at like a talk I gave like in 2011, and there was a lot of stuff that I was like, yeah, that was good. But there was a lot of stuff that was like, oh, geez, Wendy, you didn't even know any better than blah, blah, blah. And I keep getting that enlightening, like, wow, how much far I have to go. Oh, another question from our participant, Darby High from Ottawa, Canada. I'm in the dissertation page of my PhD, and I'm writing about fat queer I don't know how to say that, epistemology in memoir, but after my proposal defense, I felt a bit lost. This talk has been inspiring and encouraging. How do you care for yourself within the academy? What is bringing you joy?
My gosh, thank you, Steph. And yeah, I definitely I relate to that. This question is so interesting because I remember when I started my program, I was like, I'm only gonna write about fat queer artists of color. That's like you know, my interest, that's who I want to spend my time thinking with and building up. And I think as I'm saying this, I'm like, I think that I've come back around to that, but there was a period where I had to kind of take a step back because in many ways it became, and it not just engaging with these artists' work, but engaging with fat studies as a field, and certainly through memoir, like it can become a lot of sitting in your own trauma. And I had to figure out how to create some distance for myself, also so that I'm not constantly performing that kind of activation all the time when I'm writing and presenting and all of this stuff. So I definitely had to figure out a nice balance between what I actually wanted to get to and how to not just constantly re-traumatize myself all the time with engaging with these questions, right? And so one of the ways that I do that is by writing about fun stuff. You know, I write about Drag Race, I write about Beyonce. I also write about fat queer artists of color, but specifically through Drag Race and Beyonce, I want to highlight again how weight stigma impacts people across the spectrum of size. Right. And I think in some ways I'm lucky and privileged to have been in a program with supportive advisors that would let me, you know, write about this stuff that can seem frivolous and unserious and kind of low culture. But that was definitely how I managed to find that balance. And caring for myself within the academy is a great question. I think it's a lot about learning how to place boundaries around my time, my commitments, my relationships, and so on and so forth. Again, so that to not just completely succumb to the demands and expectations. And in terms of joy, I'm a really big TV person. I love television. I have been enjoying the new season of Love is Blind. I love all of those Netflix reality shows. And yeah, and then petting my little doggy, Honey.
No, do not ruin. Oh my God. Honey was my dog. You cannot have a dog named Honey. My dog named Honey was the best dog fucking it. No, it's not acceptable. This is like a person named Cynthia being involved in this prison. No, fuck this asshole. Fuck this asshole.
Thank you for the question.
Are there any other questions? Thank you for sharing all of that. About how you
You will
have
not
managed to do
besmirch
that
the
in a
memory of
small
my
feat.
dog.
I'm all
They,
about
them. That's it. That's the end of the presentation. I can't. We have to stop. Hey, you guys want to see some pictures of what this person looks like? You guys want to see some, as a final closing shot, we got Disenrage in about 20 minutes. We're going to be coming back and talking about aliens and stuff with Jennifer. You want to look at some pictures real quick of what this person looks like? This one. Oh, hang on. I just want the photo though. I just want the photo. No, doesn't want to give me the photo. Doesn't want to give me the photo. I wonder if I can open image in new tab. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. What about this one? That's who we've been listening to for the last several hours. This is a college professor that is influencing young minds at a taxpayer-funded college. I'm pretty sure that's a Those look like boobs to me. I'm just saying. Those look like boobs. Oh, wait. Look at this. Oh, look at this one. Look at this one. You guys are going to love this one. There we go. There we go. I think that's enough. I think here's one more. Here's one more. Just want a little bit less fat, it seems. A little bit less fat. But again, the whole bondage thing, I told you guys, these are the queer activists are all into fucking bondage. Well, I'm just looking on Google, so there's probably porn somewhere. I'm not going to go find the porn, though, bot. I'm not going to go find the porn. Dis oi they. Yes, indeed, Cynthia. Dis oi they. Thank you for that last super chat, my dear. I really do appreciate it. Guys, I'm going to go take a break for about 20 minutes. Jennifer and I are doing Disenraged tonight. This is a show that Jennifer and I do on Tuesday night where we talk about mystical things and stuff like that. I want to thank every single person who donated 104 new channel memberships on the stream today. Thank you guys. You guys are so generous. Thank you for sending in super chats. I really appreciate it. I cannot do what I do without your guys' support. Thank you for helping me be independently funded. So all I need to do is show up and show you what's going on and help you make sense of this dystopian world. I will be taking a short break and I will be back in about 20 minutes. I'll see you guys then.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.